All right, welcome to the Achilles Tactical Podcast, a podcast that aims to have meaningful conversations that help men becoming more capable and more competent as protectors, as husbands, as fathers, brothers, and leaders. I'm your host, David Acosta Jr., and today's guest is Professor Luigi Mondelli. Professor Luigi is a martial artist. He's a coach. He's a teacher. He's a lifelong student whose path has been shaped through responsibility, adaptation, leadership, and a continuous refinement. From becoming a young father and a provider to rebuilding life in a new country, to coaching and leading a large community through martial arts and combatives, Professor Luigi brings a perspective grounded in what I think is both experience and what I would call continuous evolution. What I'd say stands out to me most in preparing for this conversation with Professor Luigi is that this episode really isn't about fighting. It's really more about evolution. It's about what happens when someone remains humble enough to continue refining themselves long after they become capable. Throughout this conversation, we're going to discuss fatherhood, responsibility, ego, leadership. We'll talk about integrated combatives. We'll talk about coaching, adaptability, and the pursuit of continuous growth through what we call the Kaizen mindset. We're also going to explore something I think is becoming increasingly rare today, which I think is the ability to change your mind honestly when presented with better information, without allowing ego or identity to get in the way. I think there's a lot in this conversation that applies far more beyond just martial arts. So without further delay, this is Professor Luigi Mondelli. Professor, welcome.
Thank you very much, Dave, for having me. I hope I can contribute. I think it's an awesome project and mission you have now. And I do believe that you will help a lot of young folks and young adults and adults in general to find different ways of thinking or just find themselves in the middle of this, universe of information out there.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you doing this. So let's dive into it. I think one of the things people miss sometimes is how much responsibility shapes identity before someone ever becomes what we would say is successful. And I think a lot of times the pressure comes first, then growth tends to follow. And from reading through the questionnaire that we went through before recording in relation to preparing for this, it sounded like responsibility showed up for you fairly early on. So when you think back on your early environment, Professor, what do you think shaped your understanding of responsibility before martial arts ever entered the picture?
So, Dave, what I think, first of all, it came from the way that I grew up. Right? My upbringings at home. And I think there is a background there I didn't mention in the questionnaire, but I think it comes from some sort of tradition in my family. Let's say my father was an Italian immigrant in Brazil. His father was an Italian immigrant in Egypt, and my other side of the family, we are all Christian Lebanese that fled Lebanon for obvious reasons of being Christians there, and then the family moved. And because of these two different cultures at home, I think both families went through a lot of hardships moving to a new country, but they passed to me this sense of responsibility at a very early age, even though my family had a good financial condition when I was born. My mother always taught me the importance of the little things, being responsible over little things, and even giving me tasks that back then I didn't like it, just like simple things, just doing banking stuff for her as like, her helper, or, my father, he was the typical father, like hold this flashlight, handle me this wrench, kind of thing, and helped me clean the yard kind of thing. So I think that shaped me at an early age.
Mm,
And when I faced my biggest challenge first at 20 years old, when I found out that my girlfriend was pregnant, I think I was ready, you know. So
mm,
uh, I think that was the first challenge in my life, being a father young, right? Still going through college, is still trying to do all my training and working, and so that 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 education that I had at home helped me become a man at an early age, because in Brazil, like 20 years old is pretty young for Brazilian standards,
mm.
and to start a family, and I think that's how pressure started, and I had to mature very fast, to be the provider and to not depend at all of my family to provide to my new family, from my
Yeah.
parents. So I broke that link right away, and I became independent at that age, with a good job. And but I think I was blessed. I do feel like I was blessed because I had everything falling into the right place at the right moment, as far as like job and everything else. But the pressure started there, right?
Yeah. What would you say um, that pressure did as far as teaching you early on that you probably couldn't have learned a different way?
Well, I think so. First of all, is to do the right thing, right?
Mm,
Um, Embrace the changes, unexpected changes, and see the blessings within. Um, it forced me to become, let's say, a good professional in what I was doing back then. And I
yeah.
was doing computer engineering in college, and I was an IT professional already, a programmer, a coder, and now I had no other choice but becoming really good at what I was doing and balancing, being a good husband, a good father, a good son still,
Yeah.
and and a good professional, and balancing all of those new things, and I feel that with the right mindset, I think I thinking back, I do believe that I had a good mindset because I saw my father grinding a lot, right? So he was a guy that was awake like at 4:30 in the morning, and he, even though he had at some point 200 employees, he would be doing all the work too together. So
Mm,
I saw how he he never took a vacation. He was the leader of his businesses, but also he was with all the employees at the same time doing everything, and not just like giving orders. He was the guy doing the hard work as well. And when I worked with him, I didn't understand. I didn't understand because he wanted me to be on the floor doing the. We used to work with different things. So he had a HVAC company,
mm,
and I went to college first for mechanic engineering, and but I back then I didn't understand his mindset, right? So he was a business owner, but he was the guy on the ground working together with his employees, doing all the hard work. Meanwhile, like I said, he had 200 employees, so he could had like another mindset, like, I'm the boss, I'm just giving orders. But he was the kind of guy, like, he was hands-on, and he wanted me to be hands-on, like
mm,
he was. So I didn't understand back then when I was 17, 18, 19 years old, until um we had a split, because I thought like, he wasn't right. And matter of fact, he was right. And then I went, I decided to have my own path. I changed from mechanical engineer to computer engineer in my college. And in the middle of this process, that's when I became a father. And I was going through this like change in my profession and my work, my job, from working for the family to now being on my own, became a father. And then I realized like my father was right. I
Yeah.
have to grind the way that, he was doing it. So I think I had to go through to understand that what he wanted for me, what kind of man he wanted me to be. But I had to take that responsibility in my own hands and feel it, so I could do it and understand him and forgive him for thinking differently and asking for his forgiveness for also thinking differently.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Professor, when this happens, right? This we have this event, and we vocalize it as pressure, right? Like there's a lot of pressure. Can you explain more so, like, let's vocalize internally, like what's going on in your mind as far as like what's creating the pressure? What specifically are you thinking as far as trying to, like, problem sets that you're potentially trying to solve?
Yeah. So what I really mean with pressure is I feel dealing with the hardships and the unknown and finding the solutions and moving on. It's a try and error, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now pressure is or was to provide to my family, to my wife, to my new daughter, right? My newborn. And right a year after that, year and a half, my second daughter. And making sure that I could provide stability to my then, wife and my ex-wife, so we could provide the best for our daughters, right? And in the middle of that, I end up helping her mother, my mother-in-law back then, who also went through some financial hardships. And at 23 years old, I saw myself with a big family, with my mother-in-law living with us, with my brother-in-law who was a kid, and having a wife, two daughters, and etc. So the pressure now is to provide this stability that I could only do through to being professional in what I was doing, to keep my job, um, to keep our good, housing condition, food on the table, and of course later on the education of my daughters. So now you have to conciliate a lot of new things as a new father and husband. You're navigating many different things. Fatherhood,
Mm-hmm.
how to be a good father. What helped me a lot, I do believe, is I do believe my Christian values as well. So I think with that being the foundation of my life, being honest in everything I was doing in my work, being a good employee, being a good husband, loyal husband, and of course trying to, like I said, like provide the environment that would be peaceful, stable. But the pressure comes from navigating different things, right? My corporate
Yeah.
life, working through the politics and working for a big corporation that I was already working for at 23 years old, trying to finish college at the same time and try to keep training steady, and balancing all of that is just like, it's almost like when you go to a circus and you have those guys that balance the little plates, like
Yeah.
with a bunch of one on the nose, one on top of the head, and one in each
Oh yeah.
hand. And so that was life at that time. And then the pressure was that, to make sure that life was as stable, like predictable as much
Mm.
as possible for the family.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is all happening in your early 20s.
Yep.
Culturally, like, what was it like in relation to, like, in Brazil? Was that like a big deal? Was it just another day? I know here nowadays in today's culture, it's very different, right? Like having that all happen at your early age. A lot of that is getting pushed back till dudes are in their early 30s nowadays.
Well, yeah. So basically in Brazil, there's a cultural difference because even like here, we see still like young kids, 16 years old, 15 years old, having a part time, already learning, go work at the deli, something like that. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
it's still common, but, when I moved to the United States, I remember working in a deli and seeing the 16-year-old kids working, the cash register or something like that. In Brazil, it wasn't that common, unless you were working informally, unformally. Um, but even by the Brazilian laws, anybody under 18 years old cannot really work, right? Should be in school. So usually in Brazil, like I would say, we try to go finish college, go through internship. So you're about like you're 20, 24, 25 years old. That's when you really like diving into your professional life, starting working for a big company or some other company. If you're going that route, trying to
Right.
have a college degree, and so it's not, and say like back then, middle class wouldn't be like the normal to kind of have the path that I had, So most
Mm.
people try to go to college, finish college, get a good job, and almost like here, but within that age range, like 25, 26 years old or so.
Yeah.
And unless like you're in a different layer in society where you have to start like hustling at a much younger age, but again, not as a in like a formal job, and but that's the difference, the cultural difference between the two, I see. So at my age, it was kind of like everybody like, oh, why now how are you going to do, how are you going to go to college, how are you going to finish this, how are you going to be successful, you know what I mean? Like, so because it's not the norm. And then I said to everybody like, oh, I'm going to do everything I can, like, I'm going to have my family, I'm going to be a good father and a good employee, and then finish my college so I can keep moving on in my professional life, until I decided to change everything later on. But
Mm.
um, yeah, I think that's the biggest difference.
Yeah. How much would you say of who you are today was essentially shaped by that responsibility early on?
Um, I mean, I think all my decisions after that um, derived and came from the early responsibility I had in my life, like not fearing change, um, adapting to, I think I adapt well to this curveballs and
Mm-hmm.
changes, so kind of like not getting too hung up in if something changes, like I, I I try to find the answers. I try to be a problem solver, right? So um, I think I'm still like that. I'm still like I can adapt, but I'm always looking for a logical answer to solve problems, and trying to not be emotional, and just like, hey, it is what it is. This is what I have in front of me, and I have to find a solution for that. So, but that comes from that early experience, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you look back at it now, do you think that that responsibility matured you faster than, let's say, being passionate about a degree would be?
100%. I think it definitely it sped up this process, becoming more mature. But also, I think I had other moments that I realized later on, like, well, I was immature, even though I already matured a lot. You know what I mean? Like, so later on, just looking when I right before moving to the United States, making the decision to move to U.S. was another moment. Like, well, I know I had this many flaws, and finding my where I could be better. And
Yeah.
I think I'm still in that process. I think we should always be still like reassessing a lot of stuff in life and see how we can be better. I don't think we are, set in like 100% in one way, and changes
Mm.
can be good if
Yeah.
those changes make sense and they're logical.
Right.
So so I think it helped me to speed up this process of becoming more mature, but also it serves as a database of positives and negatives, and that can influence my decision making today.
Yeah.
Right. So 100%, those experiences like still shapes my life.
That's awesome.
I
It's a
think
great
so.
outlook on it. And being able to recognize that is huge, right? What did that instance, the pressure of that instance, expose to you about yourself?
Okay, so in a personal level, I can say that I became more aware of how anxious I could get. I'm talking
Mm.
about like now, say my psyche, right? My
Yeah,
mind.
yeah.
Um, so that is one. How anxious or how I had this anticipatory. I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Yeah, yeah.
Anticipatory
Yep.
anxiety, right?
Yep.
Um, a lot was based on not wanting to disappoint anybody,
Mm-hmm.
right? And not to be accepted, but it's mostly like I don't want to disappoint my daughters. I don't want to disappoint, say, my ex-wife now, or I don't want to disappoint my parents. So I had this anticipatory anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
and as I think I became more aware of how I perceive and how I feel in certain situations, I learned that I need some time to go from emotional to logical
Mm.
and to kind of like desensitize, if that makes sense. Yeah, so one was like the anxious, the anxiety that was almost like sometimes crippling
Mm-hmm.
to, okay, I need to process this. And so I became more aware and had a better control over these first emotions, right? So it's first like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to
Mm.
organize this? How am I going to provide this? And instead of being controlled by the emotion, I would just like, you know what? These are my options. I have to be logical. I have to assess what are the other results or outcomes from my decisions. And so it's kind of like going back to moving away from a emotional state to a logical state, almost like borrowing my knowledge in IT, right? In every time, I worked with logic, so I'm like, okay, I have to be logical now. And I think the biggest lesson was to navigate from not reacting in the moment to give me enough time, whatever time I need, to have a logical response.
Mm.
And that comes with troubleshooting, right? So troubleshooting the
Yeah.
whole time. Yeah, it's our own. If we're looking at ourselves from outside, we are applying the same OODA loop, right? That we would apply in an environment or in a situation. But I try to start seeing myself as an observer of myself, so I could try to orient myself and make decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Professor, what habits would you say you found became necessary to succeed in your problem solving?
Well, one is simple, as simple as possible, scribing
Mm.
instead of having loose thoughts. I don't know if it's that the path that you want me to go, but putting in a practical level, I I started scribing more um, the problem, right? Writing
Mm.
down what the problem was or what the task ahead is.
Mm.
And that helped me structure my thought process in a way that I could give myself some relief, a mental relief, because I can always look at the piece of paper where I wrote down what is the problem, and in a structured way, maybe find my what ifs. Like, what if I do this to solve this? What is the outcome that can come from this decision? Make sense?
Yeah, it's a very methodical approach to it. It's a very logical approach. I think a lot of people try to do that just in their heads, but they never actually put pen to paper to actually write down, right, and actually have it there to be able to go back to and use.
I think it helps, right? So in front of me, I cannot show you here, but in front of me, I have, a frame, and in this frame, I have things written, not just tasks, but pretty much not problems, but let's say things that I have to address.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easier. It's not just a reminder. It's not just like a footnote or just like something that you write on your notepad. It's just it works for me in a way that I can visually structure my thought process, if that makes sense. It's
Yeah.
almost I could program, I could code myself.
Mm. Yeah,
So
that's
I
great.
like to do it that way. Yeah. Besides task, listing my tasks or my to-do list, this is all great. I think it helps me, super important, but it does help me not just to not forget things, but I feel I realize that there are many benefits in doing so.
Right.
Just like watching a lot of Jordan Peterson lectures and some other lectures, just the fact that I can cross something and saying that I finished this task or I found a solution to this problem, I feel that there's such a good rush of endorphins. Just like,
Mm.
this is done or this is not a problem anymore, So um, I think that there is this side to it as well, but also it helps me unclutter my brain, just having a
Yeah,
list of things, you know.
absolutely. I think a lot of guys nowadays, a lot of young men, they want growth, but they spend a lot of time, right, in their life avoiding responsibility. They make decisions to intentionally alleviate responsibility. Do you think that responsibility is actually one of the primary engines that forces growth in men?
I think there's no growth without responsibility, right? You need to take risks. And it's not by avoiding risks that you grow in life, right?
Right.
A lot of people see, the way that I see is like a lot of people see, for instance, like something that they plan not going well as a loss, as a completely waste, or they feel defeated. I think it's normal. Okay, initially you take a responsibility because let's say you want to grow. So to grow, so first of all, you have to acknowledge your weaknesses. And
Mm.
weaknesses is could be in many different levels. Could be like first what you don't know, right? Second, it could be another weakness is, well, maybe I am not a structured person, maybe I'm not an organized person, maybe I don't like I said, like I don't plan. Whatever weakness, or I wouldn't say like even a weakness, but let's say the points that you need to work on. You have to take responsibility to acknowledge those things, name those things, acknowledge and name those things, and then act upon them. Like you have to now discipline yourself, and then now you can take a task that can make you grow, and you will pursue that task and you try to. But let's say that you fail for some reason. I know that this is getting overused, but when people say like, well, everything is a learning process, which is true, right? You take the responsibility over yourself, what you know, what you don't know, what you need to get better at, what is not your natural inclination, and then you try to be disciplined. You cannot
Yeah.
just use as an excuse. Let's say, oh, I'm an unorganized person. Okay, that doesn't mean anything. Oh, naturally I'm unorganized. Okay, all right. So if you're not naturally organized, what you do is you try to be disciplined now
Right.
and create a routine to be organized. Just giving one example.
Mm-hmm.
And if your plans, because you need to take responsibility to make plans, and if your plans now fail, you can say like, okay, you need to go back, reassess, and use that as a lesson to be able to take new responsibilities and start a new plan and have new tasks lined up and keep moving on. That makes sense? Like, so I think
Yeah.
without responsibilities, you cannot really grow mentally, spiritually, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, you cannot really even develop your skill sets if
Right.
you don't take responsibility for even what you don't know and just like work on those areas.
For sure. I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree. Very well said. Professor, I think one of the clearest pressure tests of identity is removing someone from familiarity, a different country, a different culture, different expectations, with no guaranteed outcome. You mentioned making the decision to leave home, Brazil, and start over somewhere completely different at a young age. And I'm quite curious as to what that process actually did for you internally. What originally pushed you toward making that decision to leave home and start over somewhere completely different?
Um, so first, I can tell you that it wasn't an easy decision. It came from a combination of many things that happened in my life, and one of them was a unplanned divorce from my first wife, right, the mother of my daughters. But together with some other bad decisions I made that I had to take responsibility for, right,
Mm-hmm.
as far as like professional life and etc. And also based on I wasn't happy anymore working the way that I was working for the company that I was working, made some decisions. And long story short, it didn't work out. That included going back to the family business. Didn't work well. And again, I decided to, well, first of all, I need to still be, a really good father, provider. I still need to protect my daughters, providing a good future for them. So there's a combination of many things, and I just keep it very short. But the combo would be, first of all, protect my daughters by providing to them like a really good education, um, a really good stable financial life. Another was to provide to myself, meaning I wanted to do what I really love to do, which was, teaching now. And that's because I didn't mention, but since I was a teenager, I was always doing martial arts, so my training never stopped, right? So in the middle of all of this, I was always training. So now I saw in teaching an opportunity to provide to my daughters and to do something that I love. So now I was taking care of two different, so first taking care of them and taking care of myself and doing something that I thought that, man, I really like teaching. It wasn't like being a leader. It's just like, and I was still competing. Anyway, so I had some offers to move to Canada, but then it didn't work out. And I had another offer to move to U.S. and end up coming to United States. And that was a huge decision, of course, because everything changes culturally, right?
Mm.
But as soon as I got here, I realized that I was, for the first time, in a place, in a country where, for somebody like me, I feel that I was never scared of working hard. I would have the best opportunities. So, so in the beginning, I would say that I numbed myself a little bit from missing my daughters and not being able to see them all the time, right?
Mhm.
By working 7 days a week and feeling like um, I could build something here that I could give back to people and I could provide to my daughters and I could fulfill a side that I had that I felt like I like to teach. I like to see people improving. I think through martial arts, we can help a lot of people. So moving here, there's so many things, man, as an immigrant I can talk about, but is a roller coaster of feelings as well, right? Because you have those
Yeah.
days that you miss your family a lot. You miss um, just being close and being able to hug my daughters anytime I wanted. Now I can't. I cannot. I have to take a 10-hour flight if I want to, right? But at the same time, the comfort of, man, if I work 7 days a week, right, teaching and doing whatever work I could do, um, I still can give them a great stability until they finish their colleges and universities and graduations and etc. I can build a community, a team, um, right? I can teach, and at the same time, I am evolving as a person.
Yeah.
So maybe there's something in my blood about being an immigrant, like I said, because father was an immigrant, other grandparents were immigrants, and we always absorbed the local culture. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like
Yeah.
and enjoyed the country that welcomed us. So I think that just made me grind, man. It's just like nonstop. And I got here, and then I just loved having the opportunity to work hard and being able to make my life here, you know, and help people as well.
What do you think people misunderstand? You mentioned, you know, how you can go into it, and I want you to, because I think that's a lot of pressure, right? Like, I moved from Connecticut to Texas, and that was a big deal for me, at least. I can't imagine, making the move that you made, like as an immigrant. So, what do you think most people either fail to understand, misunderstand, fail to realize in regards to the cost that comes with rebuilding yourself in a new environment like that, a new country, starting from the ground up?
Okay, so there's a cost. There's a high price to pay, right? I guess the biggest price to pay is the distance from who you love. And there's no money, there's no accomplishment, there's nothing that would fill that space, fill that void. You're always going to live with that.
Yeah.
And that is there's no words I can put really to explain that. Unless you don't feel anything, unless like you don't love, you don't have
Right.
like, some people just move and they're like they don't care, right? It's easy if you're moving with your whole family, right?
Right.
There will be other challenges, but when you do have people that you love and you cannot hug at will, on demand, like, oh, can just go upstairs and hug my daughters. That's a heavy price to pay, but and I'll tell you this, and this is like I never shared in any podcast with anybody, but everything, I only found peace, and this is pressure, when I saw my youngest daughter graduating in college in Brazil. So both of them went to college. Both of them are very successful in what they do. But when I saw my youngest, because she was the last one to graduate, and she went to a really good university, the best in what she does. She's an architect, and she played her song. They had like a walk up song, like when they called the name, and this was during right before COVID. I feel, yeah, right before COVID, and so the song she chose was "The Dog's Days Were Over" or something like that. And because her college was super hard and it was pretty much full time. When I saw her getting her diploma, certificate, whatever, I felt like taking a long deep breath, and then I could just like was worth it. The price I paid, the distance, the moments, it was a hefty price. But I could be here seeing her graduating, and regardless of the distance, like we have a crazy, really amazing relationship. So my daughters, we are super close. So awesome. Anyway, there's a price to pay. There's the pressure of, like I said, I think it's more like an emotional pressure, missing people, and but other than that, in the United States, I feel like I had amazing opportunities. I had amazing people helping me out, friends, students that have been with me for 23 years. And I had help from a lot of people. And all I can say is that When it comes to my relationship with Americans, with American citizens, I have
Yeah.
absolutely nothing negative to say.
Yeah.
So that was no pressure from that.
Okay. Good.
Language barrier, of course. It was interesting in the beginning. Like I said, my mom, she made me go. So I used to go to regular middle school, high school, but in the afternoons I used to go to an English school to learn English, and it was like English
Mm.
from UK, right? So British accent.
Oh,
So
right.
I came here with a mix of the accent that I have, and on top of that accent, South American accent, I had a British accent. And but here's the deal: when we were talking about responsibility, I used to ask her like, "Oh, but why do I need to learn English?" And she goes like, "You never know. You never know when your life changes, and knowing another language might be good for you." My father spoke 5 languages fluently, so
Oh, wow.
it definitely helped him. Um,
Mm.
but and she was right, So she taught me like, yeah, just like that. That's a responsibility as well, right?
For sure.
So when it came to the language, it was hard, but not too hard. When it came to relationships and friendships and being welcomed here, it wasn't. It wasn't. It was easy. I think it was welcome and it was like amazing. But the pressure came more from the distance, from the loved ones. You know,
Mm.
that was the hardest part.
What did that make you believe about yourself? Being able to do that, working through that.
I I sometimes feel like we have to be, even in the moment, we have to be delusional
Mm.
in a way. Like even when you're not 100% certain that you can do it, you're gonna talk to yourself. You're gonna say like, "I can do it,"
Yeah.
and I hate losing. Right, so I was a competitor. I competed a lot, and then saying like this thing like, "Oh yeah, losing is not a big deal." No, I hate losing. I'm not a bad
Yeah.
loser, right? I never did any like like this guy's throw a tantrum, like no, I lost. I lost. It's fine. It's on me, right?
Yeah.
But when I made that decision, I'm like, I have to make this happen. So I do believe like we need to control our intrusive thoughts. So
Mm-hmm.
we have our intrusive thoughts. You have your limiting beliefs. We talk
Mm-hmm.
a lot about that, and we do have to have control over those thoughts. We need to.
Sure.
I think I did that my whole life, like um, talking to myself, and after some time, I learned how to do this in a structured way through a actually structured process that I learned in a course. But before, I would just like not let these intrusive thoughts hook,
Mm.
and so it's not just like, hey, you can do it, because that's like just very very shallow, right?
Right.
Um, it's not just like a personal pep talk, right?
Mm.
Um, but I wouldn't let the intrusive thoughts stick, but I would replace those with strong affirmations based on reality. For instance, I thought like, what if, um, what if like this doesn't work, right? And it happened. Like I'll give a quick example. When I got here, so the initial offers that I had to teach jiu-jitsu at a place kind of like fell through, and I had now to scramble to find another place. Long story short, I found this community center. They allow me to use some wrestling mats that they had, but long story short, for a year I had 5 students. Right, this is
Mm.
2003, and the guy that came with me, he said, "Luigi, I'm gonna stop teaching jiu-jitsu. I think I'm gonna go back. This is never gonna take off." And I'm like, "Hey man, it's up to you. I'm not going to give up. I'm just going to keep going. And long story short, one of my students saw how much I wanted and how I was there. I was there every single day, even if nobody showed up, or if it just one
Yeah.
guy show up, I was there. Hooked me up with a guy that ended up like getting me a place to teach at the high school in Newtown, and then I was teaching there. Steve Ford, that's his name. Amazing dude. He gave me this opportunity. Jim Fitzpatrick is the guy that opened most doors for me here, and but I think Jim, seeing how much I really wanted and how much I was persevering, he ended up like hooking me up with the right people and giving me the good opportunities. But the point is, I would affirm to myself, like, I know jiu-jitsu. I think I can communicate with people, and I can make this happen, right? Later
Mm.
on, this guy wanted to come back teach, and I already had 25 students.
Oh, wow.
So I told him, like, okay, let's do this. Like the 5 guys that we had, we share. This 20, they are mine. Whoever comes next, right?
Yeah.
And then he didn't want it. I'm like, well,
Right.
I did the hard work, man, to make this grow.
Yeah.
So I do believe that we have to control our intrusive thoughts. We have to and replace them. This limiting belief. Sometimes we have to replace them with affirmations that are true, based on truth.
Mm.
Look at. So that's what I thought. I thought, like, I'm not afraid of working hard. I was working 16 hours a day, almost
Mm-hmm.
7 days a week. I'm like, I don't care. So why this not gonna work? You know what I mean? Like, so this gotta will have to work, because I do have the knowledge. Still learning, but I still have the knowledge. I have the will.
Mm-hmm.
Intrusive thoughts got to unhook. So I'll just let them go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say in regards to, like, when you first got here, what parts of yourself adapted quickly versus what didn't, if at all?
As far as adaptation, simple things. First of all, adapting to the weather was hard. So it's a
Yeah.
simple, silly thing, right? But again, I'm not gonna let that be a problem. You know, I'm not gonna go back home because it's cold for 4 or 5 months. You know, but that's a simple thing. But it can be challenging sometimes.
For sure.
Um, so what was the hardest? Is that what you
Yeah,
asked?
like when you came, like what would you say you had difficulty adapting with versus what you didn't?
Difficult adapting.
If it applies, if it was a
Yeah,
smooth transition, there
I
was a
don't
smooth
know.
transition.
To be honest with you, like, I again, it all came down to feeling not lonely, but missing the people that I love. That was the
Yeah.
hard part to adapt. So, but that it's more related to being far from who I love, um, and missing them, and I think that's the hardest part. When it came to um, everything else, I think it was. I don't know, man. I feel like I have this thing, like I adapt easy to
That's great.
situations. You know, I
Yeah,
do.
that's awesome.
Yeah, I do adapt easy.
Do you think that experience made you more independent, or did it make you realize how important tribe and community actually are?
So that is the one thing. So okay, what helped me? I feel those 5 guys initially, those 5 students, they were my community, right? They were my tribe. That helped me, right? And since the beginning, I think I was lucky to have a group of guys that were not, because I never treated them as just a students, right? So students, but I don't have anybody else. So
Right.
I guess my connections with them became stronger, right? Having a tribe, I think, is extremely important, right? You can still be independent, like, right, as far as like work and other situations, but we all have. I think it's a natural to men to be with other people that have common beliefs, right? I like
Yeah.
how Bill Raper lists in his mindset talk, like what brings people together, you know, common hardships, worldviews, right? Sharing food, fire, right?
Mhm.
And that has a really strong meaning. So
Does.
so my first, let's say, community was pretty much based, and it still is, my students, right? The way that we lead our school is not just like a business. We made some choices, my wife and I, Sylvia and I, um, 16 years ago, since we moved to the place where we are, to not, well, we are a business, but we are not a, say, business driven martial arts school. Does that makes
Mm.
sense? Like, we need to have the business side, of course,
Right.
but we like to establish a relationship with our
Yeah.
students. So, and we can do that in so many different ways. And then, of course, uh, get in touch with Bill first, Bill Rapier, led me to meet the SIAC guys, the SIAC tactical group, Tom Kyer, Tuhan Tom, and Tuhan Harley, and the Atienza guys, and that was a amazing addition to my own tribe and community, because I can have some parts of these two communities that can merge, right, through
Right.
the combatives training, through all we do, and that made my life close to perfect in the United States. The only thing, it would never be perfect. It would be perfect, 100% perfect, when my grandson is here, my granddaughters are here, or like, if I could be 100% of my
Yeah.
time with the family around. But it's not in a bad ways. I just came back from Brazil, spent 45 days there, had a great time. So um, it helped me. So moving to the United States helped me become a better problem solver, helped me be more independent, but show me a stronger need of building and having a good, healthy community and being part of our tribe. Make sense?
All right, so I want to touch on something briefly that comes up a lot these days, and that is the subject of nicotine. There's a growing body of research around nicotine and its cognitive effects, specifically its ability to increase focus, alertness, and reaction time in the short term. We've personally found benefit in using it responsibly in the right context. So, for myself and the rest of the team at AHT, if we're going to use something, we just want it to be clean, consistent, and controlled. And for us, that's where Zimo comes in. So, if you are already in that lane, kind of already tracking on this, or at least considering it, you can support those who support us by going to zimopouches.com and check out what they have to offer. If you decide you want to make a purchase, feel free to use our partnership code at the checkout. Partnership code is AHT20. That's AHT20, and it'll save you 20% on checkout. So we appreciate you guys. Thanks. For sure. Was there ever a point that Was there ever a point where you questioned the decision, like whether or not you made the
100%.
right decision in moving?
All the time.
Yeah.
This is like, it would be, I think, unnatural if I would say, like, um, that I never thought about it. Not all the time, but say many times I thought about it. And that's something that I stopped. Like, that's something that I tell people, like, I feel I lived many lives, right? And it had to be not because of destiny or anything. It's because of my own choices. But I'm saying is, so one thing I learned, Dave,
Mm-hmm.
and this goes back to my Christian beliefs.
Okay.
I think that God can even fix my wrong decisions and make them great decisions. And that's how things work.
Mm.
If moving to the United States was a bad decision at some point, I don't know. But I do believe that I'm blessed and God made it to be a great decision.
That's awesome.
So I put that way.
Yeah. Amen. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Professor, I feel like sometimes people talk about confidence as if it comes from, success. But I think a lot of the real confidence that we develop as men comes from surviving adversity or uncertainty. What do you think about that?
I'm 100% with you. I think, so first of all, we don't know what we don't know. And so one thing is to have some bravery, which is not really like confidence. This is just like, I will have to endure this and I'll have to go through this. And like I said, it's a more, it's a simple way to think is, it's just, it is what it is. I'll have to go through this. And you just go through. Now, the results will definitely build your confidence. And again, I do believe that even the bad results will give you enough knowledge to build confidence for a second try, right? So confidence comes a lot from experience, I think, but most of all, not from success, but from the analysis that should come afterwards, your AARs every single time. Because based on those AARs, you will have more confidence
Yeah.
to redo it, right? We see that when we run training, right? First AAR, you break down this and that, okay? You open this depth of view, right? The student now is seeing like different things, observing different things, expecting these other, things, and that builds confidence. So experience and analysis, post-experience, will build confidence. Before, I feel it's like you just need to be brave to endure, right? I'm more confident if I had to move to another country. I would be more confident now. Before, I think I was like, there's some bravery and then just like taking a plane and first like getting a place to sleep, renting a room and then renting an apartment and then buying a house, right?
Yeah.
But I know now better how would that go if I moved to another country, right? Hopefully. But I would have more confidence. But I don't think it's just success. Success definitely helps. But how do we say, Guys in Tribe says, right? Success is not always, I don't want to misquote, but
Proof of
success is
prior
not always
practice.
Yeah, I think to Horn Harley the other day he mentioned that because I asked him again. Success is not proof of best action, right?
Success is not a proof, right? Like success isn't automatically a proof of prior proper practice. Meaning like just because you survived didn't mean that you did it right.
And if you're honest to yourself, about that, you wouldn't be confident that repeating that would provide the same result. What you need
Mhm.
is the best answer. So that builds confidence. That's the analysis I'm talking about.
Yeah. Can you break down the AAR component for those that don't know what an AAR is? Can you break that down?
After action report, after action reports, pretty much like every time, it could be something simple. Let's put in jiu-jitsu terms, right? We're doing a
Mm.
specific drill, and I'm watching first, and I'm gonna get a student, gonna put that student in a situation, and the student will have one goal. Your goal is to get out of here this way or that way, find your answer, right? Finish 2 minutes, we stop, and I asked them, what was your train of thought? You know, why did you do this? Oh, because I saw he's was gripping me this way, he was holding me this way. So we're gonna assess what you did. You're gonna see if your thought process was the best, right? If you saw everything,
Right.
and we now can say that was a good decision. Maybe there were other decisions. I'm giving a very simple compared
Hmm.
to whole scenario based training, things like that. But it's the analysis after the action,
Yeah.
and most of all, the way that I see observing, especially Tom Kyer, Bill, and many other guys, is like, well, getting that information about how that person was thinking. What were you thinking?
Right.
And that analyzing the actions and trying to come up with the best report for that person. So going again, they will expand their depth of view. They will see more things. They will be more
Right.
prepared. I think that builds confidence.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Preparation too, right? Preparation builds confidence too. I think preparation,
Absolutely.
anticipation and uh, gathering information and data before. That's what I did before moving to the United States. I already knew Danbury, Connecticut. Like I had the map in my head. I already researched a lot of stuff. I researched as much as I possibly could about where I was going to live, where I was going to teach, and how people like many things. And so anticipation and preparation does help confidence as well. But
For sure.
I do believe that
Yeah.
analysis
Absolutely.
post fact also helps.
Absolutely. Professor, I want to talk about manhood and masculinity in relation to fatherhood, right? Being the provider, the protector. I think a lot of modern conversations around manhood and masculinity stay fairly theoretical because they're disconnected from responsibility. But provision changes people, right?
Hmm.
Protection changes people. Having people depend on you as a man changes you. Especially if failure is no longer isolated to you alone, right? Like those failures in those capacities end up being, the actions or the repercussions trickle down to those who you're responsible for. So, how did becoming responsible for a family change the way you viewed discipline and preparation?
So first of all, it's exactly what you said, right? I'm not failing alone anymore. If I fail, I'm failing other people, and I would be directly affecting their lives.
Yeah,
So that is a huge motivation, right?
yeah,
Let's say, again, you got to do it. You have to embrace that responsibility. You have to be capable. You have to embrace what you are not, and you have to become, right?
right.
So the masculinity component, I feel a lot of people like now is just like with all the woke thing going on, and I think they, because that's many ideologies do, right? They steal the meaning of some words and they change it so it can be applied the way that they want. Let's talk about that masculinity. I think like men should be, one of the main missions of every man is to be a protector and to be
Mm-hmm.
a provider.
Mm-hmm.
And you need masculinity for that.
Absolutely.
So you mean, what do I mean? I mean, like, you need to be assertive. You have to have a great amount of assertiveness in yourself. You have to be brave, right? You have to be responsible. That is all masculinity, in my opinion. You need to be able to provide that protection in all different levels. I'm not just talking about security in one way. I'm talking about overall protection. You need to protect your family from so many things, right?
Yeah.
You need to be able to fix things. You need to be able to look for answers if you cannot fix things. You need to be able to find people that have those answers for those things that you cannot fix. And that is all responsibility. This is all being masculine in a positive way. And you're still going to be a gentleman, right? Because we need to be,
Right.
especially men have to remember, I have two daughters. Men have to remember that the first model, the first template that will be built in your daughter's mind of what is a good man
Right.
is based on yourself. That's it. That's the template for them, right? So if you're a father, if you're a man who's trying hard to be a good man, to be a good father, to be a good husband, to be a good, leader or student, or, I think you're providing that template to your daughters and to your sons as well. But I'm saying,
Right.
like, your daughter's gonna marry a lot of times um, a man that probably unconsciously um, she saw in that man those traits that you provide as a template.
Right. That's what her idea of right looks like.
And the same thing, your son is looking at everything you're doing. Every
Mm-hmm.
time you dry firing, every time you checking, your car's, engine, every time you are cleaning the backyard, every time you talk to your wife, your son is watching and is
Absolutely.
learning unconsciously. It's just like,
Right.
you know. So that masculinity we're gonna be the template that will help your daughter make a decision about who she's gonna marry one day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also a template for your son, for what kind of man your son will become, right? So that's what I feel, that the masculinity uh, encompass so many things, so many traits, and
Yeah.
we have to be watching, because now is we have always to remember, like, our children, they're always watching us, you know,
Always.
and we cannot fake it. We just need to be good people.
No, actions will always speak louder than words in that regard.
I think so.
Professor, what would you say provision taught you about consistency?
Consistency, I think that's what makes it. You get there, right?
Mm.
And with failures or not, um, consistency makes you also more trustworthy, right? It's hard to trust people that are not consistent.
Right.
Consistency, I think, get you to your goals.
Yeah.
Consistency build your skills. I mean, and again, all right, positive and negative feedback, right? Positive feedback or
Hmm.
negative, meaning that if you're consistently a bad person, you're just going to get really better in being a bad person. So
Yeah.
you have to be consistent with the good things, right?
Right.
So let's say consistency with the proper AAR every time you fail can help you going back to what we were talking about being successful or gonna get you there, right?
Right.
But you need discipline to be consistent,
Hmm.
right? So you need the discipline. It's like again, just going back to regular in the shooting world. You have somebody that I'll go shoot once a month, not once a month. I say once every 6 months. You
Yeah.
you consistently being inconsistent. Is that
Yeah.
does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah.
And you're not gonna get good, right?
Right.
Um, and in this process, finding the right answers,
Mm.
just so you don't you don't become better in being bad,
Yeah.
right? Burning good reps, not burning bad reps.
Right.
Yeah. So with that AAR, the analysis after um, you are successful or you are unsuccessful, you can be better. You can get better, I think, right?
Earlier, you mentioned in regards to provision and being a protector, you talked about being a protector not only being limited to the idea of security. Was there a point specifically where you realized that capability wasn't just a physical security component, but more so emotional protection, financial protection, mental protection,
Oh yeah,
like spiritual stability?
I think so. So first, one of the reasons why I came to US, not just to teach what I loved and do what I love, and actually it was a big dream for me to always had this admiration for this country, but was to provide a financial protection so my daughters could, get to the best schools,
Mm.
to build a life here and give them, a stability for the rest of their lives. Um, Also, I think that a lot of people neglect this side of understanding more some, psychology, or I think it's so many times I had deep conversations with my daughters. And I was always interested in learning more about psychology, not to be their therapist, but also to just be able to normalize some things they were feeling or just being able to give a better advice. So I just I cannot just give an advice like, just don't cry. That's
Yeah.
not an advice, right?
Right.
Um, I'm not a therapist, but I like to understand a little bit better so I can have more meaningful and mindful conversations with them or with my wife or with my family or whoever. So that is one way, right? So I'm kind of like trying to be a safe harbor for them to come whenever they need some emotional support. Some way I'm protecting them, right?
Yeah.
So I talked about being protecting them financially, emotionally. Of course, it's safety, security. I can only teach them more mindset because I'm not there physically to train them all the time.
Right.
When it comes to this other type of protection, a physical protection, it's more a mindset, right? But but I do believe that as parents, as men, as future husbands, for a younger person watching this, it's important for you to be well diverse in your knowledge, not to know everything, but to have a good understanding of many different areas in your life, being financially responsible. Um, I try to, spiritually speaking, um, I try to, mostly what I do with my family, I share my experiences. I share what I'm living, how is my relationship with God, and how I'm seeing and living my faith. So it's mostly by I'm living this life, and this is how I'm praying, or this is how I am conducting my spiritual life. I'm talking about religion, and then I can share with them. But that is also in a way um, might be helping them to work in their spiritual protection as far as like their faith, how they live.
Right.
So I think like protection when it comes, I always talk about that, telling my students like always look to become more capable. A lot of people say like, well, what do you mean? Like, well, it's supposed to be vague like that. It's like more capable in all areas, you know?
Mm.
Be curious about the things that you don't know. Um, so you have a minimum understanding that can provide protection.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I have like this. I have this thing, like for instance, again, I get maybe because of my upbringings, but I can open my electrical panel. I can change breakers. I can run wires. I know how to make all the math. You know, I know some basic plumbing. You know what I mean? Like, there's some stuff
Yeah.
that I want to get better at. You know, I want to learn welding. Like, I don't know welding. I need to learn how to weld. It's part of it's in my list of things. You know,
Yeah.
when I'm gonna need it, I don't know. Maybe I'm never gonna need it. Or ham radio. I'm like, I have my radio here next to me. Like, I almost never use my radio, but you know, but I need to know. And I have my other radios, and I spend some time learning some of this stuff. Or I can code. I still can, you know, code and do my own stuff. And I can. I think having a curious mind is really helpful for
Yeah.
any man looking to become more capable and being able to solve little things, you know. And I think it's also attracting, you know, your wife would see you doing stuff and having that little knowledge. I think it's, you know, she went, whoa, this guy's pretty cool. You know what I mean? Like, he knows what he's talking about when the transmission is skipping and he's already like, oh, maybe there's this, like, you know, I'm not saying that you need to know everything, but I think it's pretty helpful if you
For sure.
keep a curious mind and try to be capable, you know.
Yeah. What I always see with guys in our circles that we consider capable is this degree of self-reliance, right? Like they can do it themselves, and it's like they can do it very well, you know? And a lot of those things are pertinent to, you know, if you look at it, I mean, from an old school perspective, like it's very survival based, right? Like
Yep.
the more reliant you are on the things that you need to survive, the less capable you are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's interesting that you brought that up because I agree 100%.
Yeah, I was just gonna say something like we always talk about me and my wife Sylvia, like, you know, what if something worse happened, right?
Yeah,
So I'm not talking about being a prepper. There's nothing wrong about being a prepper, but um, how how we would work as a team, how we would work as a family,
hmm
what do we need, you know? I feel like so many people like, man, they gonna get so lost because they never thought this through, because they think life is safe and
yeah,
the comforts of modern society, um, they are very fragile.
Yeah.
if we just stop to think. So I tell Silvia, like, one of my goals is to buy a car with a carburetor
Hmm.
that, even if it's a project car,
Yeah.
and I always like mechanical stuff, but less dependent on technology. And it's
Right.
not being paranoid. It's just like, not that everybody needs to do that, but it's just like, it's a one way of thinking, like,
For sure.
yeah, we just like trying to make some changes here in case like we go for a long time with the power outage, like how we're going to do. And, kind of small little things, what type of generators we're going to have and kind of things like that. So people, sometimes they don't think about those stuff, and they are highly dependent on other people to do that for them, which is great when you are part of a tribe. And that's a big thing of a tribe, where we can offer our expertise and
Hmm.
help our brothers and sisters. But it's also good to be able to be that person providing that type of help.
I agree. I have one more question on fatherhood I want to run by you. And it's actually more than just fatherhood; it's husbandship as well. But like in relation to being a husband and being a father, has that changed at any point in time how you approach and perceive risk?
Oh yeah. Um, One thing I learned, I'm going to talk about one way that one of my mentors, Walt Isaac. Walt Isaac is my one of my mentors, one of my teachers and combatives, or he has his own system. And a long time ago, I was talking to him. I think it was the first time I saw him, and he asked me like, would you kill somebody to save your life? I'm like, well, I didn't serve, or I was in law enforcement, so it's kind of like killing, and I kind of like hesitated, maybe a couple seconds. And he goes, okay, okay.
Yeah.
What about your daughters and your wife and your mom? I'm like, of course. And he goes, oh, you're being selfish. And
Hmm.
I'm like, what do you mean? And he goes, well, you cannot entertain the idea of losing your daughters, your mom, to anybody. So you kill to save them right away. Of course. So why you took that long? Kind of along these lines, they said, like, to answer me
Right.
when it came to your life. So I'm putting that in perspective, like, that shift a lot in my head as far as like how I feel that I need to be alive as most as possible
Mm.
for the ones that loves me, right? But I was
Yeah.
still, and so many times that thought process came as far as like, I don't need to take this risk, right?
Mm.
Not for my family, for them. This is unnecessary. And it could be speeding up. It could be driving fast. It could be
Hmm.
maybe engaging in whatever adrenaline type of bungee jump or whatever. It's super cool.
Right.
Or do I need it? Do I need
Right.
to do it? Well, I don't need to do it because there's a little risk. It's not me being afraid, but will be cool to watch my grandson growing up. Make
Yeah.
sense? Like, you know what I mean? Like, so you start living for others as well, right? So that is one thing. The other things are just like financial risks. Like, I'm not gonna gamble and in any way where I could put my financial life at risk. It could risk my family well-being as well. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not just like
For
about
sure.
being alive, but it's measuring the risk in so many different ways to because my daughters are grown up. Uh, my wife is my business partner, and so meaning that they are pretty settled in life, right? Like, Silva can, something happens to me, she can lead the team, the community, and she can still, but there are some other things you don't replace, which is your presence. So there's some risks that I think is not worth taking. It could be related to your life, it could be financially, it could be even spiritually, So it's just like being as much as possible well mentally. It's a big thing for the ones who loves you.
Professor, I want to move into martial arts and ego and identity. One thing I've noticed across almost every serious discipline is that growth eventually forces a degree of confrontation with ego. Not just confidence, but attachment to identity, attachment to certainty, attachment to being, the guy. And you mentioned in the questionnaire that, something that I think is important. That's acknowledging your own weakness becomes part of what allowed you to keep evolving. So at what point did you realize that ego can become one of the biggest obstacles of growth?
Dave, I think I have always been worried about not my image, but to not provide. I was always worried to never provide the wrong information just because of my ego. And this is something that I learned early in martial arts. If I don't have the answer, I rather say, I don't have the answer for this now. But I will do my best to research and find the answer or find who has the answer. I think it's a better view. People will look at you better than if you provide a wrong information or not the best information just because your ego is forcing you to do so, because you already reached the level, you're already a black belt, so that doesn't mean anything. Or because you have a title, coach, master, sensei, professor, whatever. So I do believe that it's our duty as educators, trainers, coaches, to acknowledge what we don't know.
Yeah.
Find the answers and become good at those things, or bring the right professional to fill the gap without being worried that people will see you as no good.
Yeah.
So a quick example, I am 6'3" tall, 250 pounds. In jiu-jitsu, I like to play the guard game a lot. So some people say that I move like a light guy, but I'm not a light guy. I don't know the struggles that a featherweight jiu-jitsu guy goes through. I know the struggles that a big guy will go through.
Yeah.
So I would say that maybe almost 100% of the people that come teach seminars in my school, they are light feather guys, like feather, lightweight, middleweight. I'm just giving one example.
Yeah, that's a great
example. And I tell my students is because they can tell you better how to get out of this situation. And I give a quick example. One time, one of my best friends, Marcos da Mata, he's the main, one of the main MMA coaches at American Top Team headquarters. People know him as a Pahumpa or Pahumpinha. And I had a competition coming. I was going to face a big dude. And I asked him, and he's like 165 or it's 160. And I asked him, Pahumpa, how do you get out from this situation against a much bigger guy. Because look, if he has a good answer,
Right.
I guarantee that I can apply some of the, whatever, or maybe everything, and
Right.
that actually helped me. So, acknowledging your weaknesses or the points that, or what you don't know is crucial.
Mm.
So people still will see you as a legit instructor.
Yeah.
And you're never going to be seen as a phony guy that is talking about something that he doesn't know. And I have been seeing that a lot. People trashing things based on a little glimpse, a little 10, 30-second, 5-minute demonstration of that style, of that thing. So, and then they go online and try to be relevant for their crowd. And it becomes this whole thing like, trying to trash what they don't know. And let me tell you, it looks so bad, right? It looks so bad when you do that. Like when you go online, trash a system or somebody or a whole community just because you don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
But your the ego is that's the gatekeeper, right? Between,
Yeah.
in our psyche, that's the guy, the little guy preventing us from being the best version of ourselves. Just to be quick here, I was gonna record a video, and I'm like, you know what? I'll wait until I go online with Dave. And I was thinking about this three things, exactly about that. One is we need to control this gatekeeper in our psyche, our ego. We need to be honest with ourselves. Two, I know we're going to talk about Kaizen mindset, which is this philosophy of a incremental, continuous improvement. It's a Japanese philosophy, right? Kaizen. If we control our gatekeeper, our ego, we can live in a constant Kaizen mindset. There's always more to learn. There's always like amazing people to have conversations with, right? Like those fire conversations around the fire with Bill Rapier, with Tom Kaya, with Harley, Tuhon Raf, and so many other guys, my coach, Walt Lysick, and my teacher in jiu-jitsu. So we're always learning. And third, it's a mindset, you know that well, comes from the SCG mindset. Frank Northman always hashtag that in his posts. Kill your clone, right? Man, I think it's such a recipe. If we control our gatekeeper, our ego, if we look for answers where we want to look at the least, right? Maybe it's in that system that you don't want to look, but the best answer for that thing is in that system. And you need to kill that version of yourself. Just putting into this, I think this triad here, these three things, like kill your clone, man. Kill that version of yourself that was resisting to learn something better just because your ego prevented you from pursuing this Kaizen mindset. Because you're more worried about your image. You're like, what people going to think about me online? I tell my students, like, I'm not the same Luigi from last year, from 5 years ago, from 10 years ago, from 20 years ago. My students, I had students that came, and I'm not saying this like to talk about myself, but one thing I kind of like, I felt good is when one student that hadn't trained with me for 10 years or more, and then he resumed training, and then he came to me and like, man, you're teaching completely different from the old days. And I'm like, yeah, I learned more stuff. I I got more information, and I got more into this, and I'm letting some of this mindset uh, merge into all this other world that we have. And isn't it great? Like, at
Yeah.
least like for my students, it's not going to be boring if I can always bring something else, right?
Right.
Always bring something else. And sometimes they ask me, like, why are you doing this? I'm like, why are you learning this thing now? Why are you shooting so much now? Why are you bringing this guy every year? I'm like, why not? Why not
Yeah.
learn more? Why not integrate more? You know, that's what.
Absolutely. It's important if you're going to have an opinion on a thing, you're going to vocalize it publicly that you're informed, well informed on the very thing you're going to opine on, right?
Yeah.
Do you think some people stop evolving because their identity becomes attached to like a system or a style or a reputation?
100%. You like nailed that. I do believe that people end up becoming the rank, the titles that they have, and they start carrying themselves. To look, I'm a 6th-degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. When I'm on the mats, when I'm writing the curriculum for my affiliated schools, when I am teaching a private class, of course there are like things, because through discipline, through consistency, through being responsible for my own training, right? I got to where I got. So there are some things that, of course, shape a personality in a way, right? Positively. Consistency, discipline, perseverance. You can talk about Bushido. And so, but that's not who I am, right? I'm not, I'm a coach. I coach many guys in MMA. Yeah, but that's not. I am more complex than that, right? I'm not just that. I think people end up like limiting themselves so much when they let that blend exist, like that they become possessed by their titles. They become possessed, almost like an entity, like almost like spiritually,
Yeah.
because it becomes such a cult, right? Where they become possessed by, I'm a black belt, I'm this, I'm that. I'm like, dude, like I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a son, I'm a teacher, I'm a student,
Right.
I'm a hobbyist, I am a bunch of things, and it makes who I am. But if I put a dead, like a point, like a deadline, or okay, boom, I'm a black belt, and I cease to learn, I think that's a problem. You know?
Agreed.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people nowadays, because they have this online persona, because of, I think social media has been affecting a lot of people with the likes and shares, and they become so dependent on that,
Yeah.
and then they have their online persona. So that's why my Instagram, now it's kind of a little bit more professional, but it's a mix of things, there's some jiu-jitsu, there's me shooting, and sometimes I post different things, and it's random because that's who I am. When you go
Yeah.
to ATT Connecticut Instagram, then it's just jiu-jitsu. If you go to core
Right.
combatives, it's more about combatives. But yeah, I think that people should, again, be honest with themselves. And I think that's a lack of honesty, self-honesty.
Yeah. Professor, how do you think how do they learn to separate personal growth from their personal insecurity?
Personal growth personal insecurity. I think a lot of insecurities come from, so first of all, it's a lot of noise. There's a lot of noise that comes from outside. Insecurities, in my opinion, comes a lot from how people get worried about how others will perceive them. So it's a validation thing. And if you are worried 100% in pleasing everybody and be always liked by everybody, you will have trouble growing because you need to be able to try different things and failing without being worried about, again, how people will judge you. So a lot of insecurities come from validation. You expecting validation from others. You expecting the approval. You're expecting the claps. You're expecting the likes, the shares, and etc.
Right.
So there's a good book. Let me try to get the name. It's called The Courage to Be Disliked. The Courage to Be Disliked. And let me just see here very quick. It's based on Alfred Adler psychology. And the writers are two Japanese, I think they were psychologists, Ishiro Kishimi and Fumitake Koga. The Courage to Be Disliked, and it's pretty much, it's a conversation between a mentor and an apprentice. The whole book is a conversation about, and it kind of like, I think it can help people. If there are people having insecurities, personal insecurities, this book, I think it can help. Because the title says it all, like the courage to be disliked, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to make some decisions that not going to be that popular, not going to be that some people might dislike. So if you not worry about validation, external validation, I think you have a clear path to growth. Make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's very powerful.
Yeah, that book helped me.
I think too many, like you said, too many people are just, concerned with being disliked or having an unpopular opinion.
And look, you're talking about, your crowd, you're a bunch of younger guys, and it can be like a guy being insecure, calling a girl for a date or something like that. It's just kind of like, it's kind of normal. I'm talking about, like, say, a young guy maybe watching this, or it could be a guy who's just looking to have a conversation with the boss, maybe about a raise, or being able to negotiate for himself or for herself, if it's a woman. And it's normal to have some insecurities, but again, with a good plan and not worrying too much about how the other person will perceive you.
Yeah.
I think it can give you that bravery. And with the results, you're going to be more confident for a second try in another opportunity, if we go back to what we were talking about,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What would you say has helped you maintain balance, right? Or helped you balance confidence in what you know in relation to maintaining like a degree of intellectual honesty that allows you to hear new information objectively and potentially, make it part of your system if it applies, if it's logical, if it makes sense, if it's a better solution, so to say.
Okay, so let me see if I'm answering you the way that you're expecting. Let's put this way. I had an idea that I knew about something about counter edge techniques. Let's put it this way. Cool. So I kind of I learned some stuff. But deep inside, I always thought, I don't know. Okay. So one day I'm training with Bill, and Bill Raper. First time I trained with him, I want to say 9 years ago, 2017, I think. And he said, blades are the anti-grappling tool. And I heard that from a black belt in jiu-jitsu, because Bill was a black belt, right? I'm like, in my head, instinctively, that ego, the gatekeeper, first thing is like, hold on a second. I train in other things. Like I train in boxing, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, judo, a little bit of Shotokan. I've done kung fu before. And I had other backgrounds too. And I learned, counter edge weapons, defense based on grappling. And then first gatekeeper is like, screw this, I know. But then we started doing some training, and then I'm like, I don't know. Right away, same day, just like looking at a template that we were doing. So I became confident that I didn't know what I was talking about. Does it make sense? So now I'm 100% confident that I should never talk. And as a matter of fact, I never taught counter edge weapons based on what I learned in the past in jiu-jitsu and other martial arts, even in Wing Chun. So I learned those things. I never felt confident to teach, but I knew that I learned what was taught to me. Makes sense. Like there's some insecurity there as far as not 100% confident, but in my ego, like, no, you learn some stuff. But then the guy tells you that this is the anti-grappling tool, and here's why. And I'm like, okay, now I'm confident that what I knew wasn't good. So the only way to become confident is through that self-honesty and training. And now all you can do is repetition, training, and being humble to, again, there's nothing wrong saying like, hey man, it doesn't matter if I was like 40 years old when I found out about this. It's never too late. I can learn. There's better information out there. And I should pretty much, in my situation, discard what I knew and incorporate this thing, these techniques, the 10,000 hands right now. And I wish I had more time, because I said I need to become an even better student, because I need to get back to even more consistent training. But I'm building my confidence based on training, knowledge, and lessons. Listening to people that knows more than me. And if I teach anything now in integrated combatives that includes edge weapons or counter edge weapons, I know exactly up to what point I can go.
Right.
With confidence. And to my students and to the people that train integrated combatives with me, I always tell them I'm still working on the stuff. So this, I guarantee to you that I know that is correct. I practice, I learn, and But here's the deal. If you want to really like know this in depth, these are the teachers, these are the systems. And I always refer to two systems, you know. There's this guy in Stanford. There's this group right here at my school, the Tienza guys. So
Hmm.
if you want to, I hook you up with them. You're gonna learn from them. From me,
Right.
expect this because I'm a student, but I'm confident in what I'm practicing. Make sense? So
Does.
I
Yeah.
balance, I think, with the self honesty.
Yeah.
You know, like many things. I feel like I've been doing martial arts for maybe almost 40 years, and so I know that a lot of the problem solving, a lot of the answers on the go, I might, might have that, like sometimes after training for so long in martial arts, every day on the mats, like you do have you find good answers
Right.
in the moment, right? But is that something that I can replicate? Is that something that I can teach again? Is that something that is like battle proven? I'm like, listen, the best I can do is like refer you to the guys with whom I have been learning from, you know,
Right.
from who I have been learning from.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. It comes right back to being honest with yourself,
Yeah,
right? Being able to collapse the ego, um, and just be honest. That's it.
it's easier, man. It's just so much easier.
I agree. For some.
Yeah,
For
I
some.
think it's easier for me at least.
Yeah. What would you say usually triggers defensive reactions in instructors?
Again, it's their own insecurities, right? I think insecurities that comes from that ego. It's sometimes, well, sometimes people don't want to hear the truth. So many times, and I was in a situation where I was in an environment watching a lot of people teaching, right, and I remember looking at some other instructors and how they were looking at the guy teaching, um and then you can tell sometimes it's like this whole thing, like everybody's competing to be the guy or to be, um meanwhile the most solid guys I watched, like they were the most humble, and they were like the coolest guys to hang out with, and I'm like, holy shit, like I love this stuff, and I'm recording and I'm asking him, and like, hey, and then next thing I next week I'm teaching that in my school because I thought it was awesome. But those guys were the coolest guys, and they were like so chill.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the guys like with that attitude, they were like, the guys, I don't know, it's just like I didn't care about it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so I feel like it goes back to, look, I don't care if I am in an environment and there's somebody better than me. It's just like it's opportunity for you to learn, man. It's just like, better like, in jiu-jitsu, which is I'm gonna learn from that guy, right? It's a better kickboxer, I'm gonna learn from that guy. Um I don't know. It's just it all goes back to ego. It's all goes back to that the concern again, external validation.
Yeah. Yep.
And and that leaks. It's such
Mm.
a, it's a leakage, like that leaks, like if people can pick that up, they can look at you and they can see like um just the body language tells you that the guy is so worried about, you
Yeah.
know meanwhile you see guys like being able to teach amazing things and still um asking you like, hey, you did this stuff, man, that was cool, how did you do that? I'm like, and then you're exchanging that, and you look at those guys and that their faces, the body language is so relaxed,
Right.
right? And that transpire confidence.
Right. There's a confidence that comes with that.
I think so.
Yeah, I think a lot of people say they want truth until the truth actually threatens the identity that they built around being right.
Yeah.
Do you think real growth requires a degree of willingness to let parts of your old identity die?
Always. I think absolutely. Like going back to kill your clone, right? Which is an STG, LOT. That is the parts of yourself that you have to. It's like a controlled burn,
Mm-hmm.
right? You need to have a controlled burn. You need to burn that down, so you can a bed of vegetation can grow, right?
Yeah.
It's a controlled burn, and that's fine, right? Mythologically speaking, you talk about the phoenix, right? But and so many other mythological characters, but the truth is, it's a controlled burn, and that's okay, and that's absolutely okay. I'm not the same father that I was 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I will be. I'm excited again to see my grandson growing, because I know that as a grandfather, I will be, different than the father that I was, back then, and you know what I mean. Like, so
Yeah,
it's awesome.
absolutely.
Yeah. Look, I feel like it's almost one of secrets of life is the control burn, and in relationships, I'm still learning that. I'm learning to uh, we we need to listen. We need to listen to the other. We need to reflect about those words. We need to be honest and see if that makes sense. And if that makes sense, maybe it's something that needs to be burned. And so you can become a better version of yourself. It's very cliche saying that, but it's true. Um, I try to do that. I'm not saying that it's easy. I'm not saying that it's just like it goes so smoothly. It might take a while. It might take multiple visits, asking yourself, but at the same time, it's liberating.
Right. This episode of the AHT Podcast is brought to you by Attorneys on Retainer. At AHT, in our defensive and our combatives courses, we often talk about the three components of responsible preparation and decision-making in relation to the use of deadly force in defense of human life. It's the moral component, it's the tactical component, and it's the legal component. Most responsibly armed citizens spend the majority of their time thinking about the tactical component while neglecting the understanding of the legalities that follow such an encounter. And the truth is, if you're ever forced to defend yourself or someone you love from such a scenario, the situation doesn't simply end once the threat's been neutralized. There are a myriad of potential consequences that follow critical incidents, and those realities should be considered long before the conflict ever occurs. So what should essentially be a post-fight consideration quickly becomes a pre-fight or an intra-fight consideration. And the problem with that is simply this. It ties up bandwidth. It makes you slow to make a good decision and or fast to make a bad decision. Real preparation is about minimizing any uncertainties before you're ever placed in a position where you need to make decisions under stress. And that's why we've partnered with Attorneys on Retainer. Attorneys on Retainer, AOR, provides responsibly armed citizens with immediate access to experienced legal representation following self-defense incidents. This helps ensure that you're not navigating those moments all alone. Because just like any other life-saving preparedness equipment or protocols, it's far better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So, to learn more, visit attorneysonretainer.us and use our code AHT to save $25 on your membership. Nowadays, the term integration in relation to martial arts and combatives, we hear integration a lot. And I think integration has become one of those words that gets used constantly today, but rarely defined clearly, right? People collect certifications, they cross-train a little bit, they start trying to bolt systems together. But that doesn't necessarily mean integration actually happened. So from your questionnaire, what we were discussing, and what we've been discussing here, it sounds like this is something that you've thought about deeply in regards to integration. So when you hear the term or the phrase integrated combatives, what does that actually mean to you?
Well, number one, I think is knowledge. So I think you do have to, let's go back again and just to emphasize this part. To acknowledge what you don't know, you have to have the humility to learn what you don't know, because combatives, it's not like jiu-jitsu, right? Well, number one, let's put it this way. Let's separate sports from martial arts. Martial arts from fighting, from combatives. Okay. But let's say a discipline. Martial arts is a great way to learn the discipline through martial arts, right? Grappling. Let's not talk about jiu-jitsu. Let's talk about grappling. I don't like too much to talk. Let's backtrack. I don't mention too much Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu anymore. I do teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm ranked in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but I like the idea of standing grappling, ground grappling. What is this standing grappling? Standing grappling.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you can mix the disciplines. Judo, sambo, wrestling, Greco, all standing grappling. Blend that.
Mm-hmm.
Ground grappling. It could be any ground grappling, but all right.
Mm-hmm.
Then, so through martial arts, we can learn and isolate those disciplines. And we just need to make sure that we understand that the mindset cannot be transferred, because you're going to have a big gap when it comes to reality. We know that martial arts, we train under rules and to protect each player and time and points and et cetera, in the cage or whatever. All right, but okay, we can learn the moves, the techniques, and et cetera. So, okay, we acknowledge what we don't know. And my early days in martial arts, I knew that I needed striking, I needed grappling, and so I started like combining those disciplines. And when it comes to combatives, you have to integrate other things: conventional weapons, unconventional weapons. So in weapons, it's the same thing as grappling. I'm talking about is a universe of things, in my opinion. So you're learning firearms, and you're learning edged weapons and blunt weapons and impact weapons, whatever. So what I see nowadays is, number one, a lot of people moving from martial arts, especially Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and MMA, and getting into combatives, but not expanding their mindset. They're still caged, controlled people. Make sense?
Yes.
Maybe a lack of understanding of real violence. Okay. So the mindset needs to be worked. Another thing is they move into a world already encapsulated when it comes to what they know. Listen, when I moved and I start getting more into, say, combatives, prior to that, I dove deep into we call RMA, Reality Martial Arts. That's my Walt Isaac system. Because Walt is an extremely amazing man. He's a pastor, matter of fact. But he's one of the most vicious guys I ever seen in my life. How he can transform himself from this peaceful pastor to a primal beast. And it's nothing fancy. It's just like, and that's what I loved. Nothing fancy. But he was a big proponent of go learn. as much as possible from everybody you can. And anyway, so a big shift in my mindset came from that. And then when I started like going more towards combatives, um, I already had a mindset that I felt that was better than just like coming from martial arts, because now I'm talking about more reality, unconventional stuff, and more violence. And then what helped me even more was getting in contact with the STG group, with Tom Kyer, with all the guys from the SIAC group, and what I see also is that, okay, a lot of people move from martial arts. Now they say they are combatives experts, but they are lacking mindset. They're lacking understanding of violence, but they're also lacking the link between those skills and, most of all, the order in which you apply them. Make sense? For instance, trying to grapple standing a guy wielding a knife. Well, it's the wrong skill to begin
Right.
with, let's say in general. But if you come with a heavy grappling bias, BJJ bias, the first thing you will want to do is what grapplers do. Grapplers grapple. They grab,
Right.
they grip. And I think the real integrated combatives is being capable, well-versed. I think you should be an expert in all the disciplines that are required, or you try to be an expert. But most of all, having the wisdom to know when to apply each
Mm.
and what beat what without your own previous bias from your 30 years of practicing something on the mats, wearing a kimono or a gi or boxing gloves, or, you know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
I see a lot of people calling integrative combatives, but doing everything very step one is this, step two. So there's no blend, there's no link, there's no flow back and forth. It doesn't move
Right.
from one to the other, or when to stop with that and add this one. And that, in my opinion, and again, is striking, standing grappling, ground grappling, edge weapons, projectile weapons, so forth, so on. Flexible weapons. So a lot of people have the skills. Maybe they were great MMA coaches, but they move into this world and they are pushing the bias based on what they know more, which not always is the best answer for that situation. Makes
Right.
sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say is the critical difference between exposure to multiple disciplines and true integration under pressure?
I think so. One is you have to have a strong LOT, like a logical order of thought, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot, it has to start in your mind with the right LOT, with the right mindset, understanding that you might train in an isolated way, but you also have to burn a lot of reps. And I don't want to say pressure testing, but you need to get those drills with a certain amount of force that if you're honest to yourself, maybe you're going to go back that day home thinking that Well, if this was true, or a real situation, I would have been dead by now. I would be dead by now because I used the wrong skill against the wrong weapon, against a weapon. So those AARs, and I've seen that happening many times,
Hmm.
right? In force on force training during the AAR, uh, people realizing, and it's great when you see some students like feeling a little bit, students or whoever is going through, um, frustrated, because you need that frustration. Because it's a great moment right now. Like when you're frustrated, it's a great moment for you to, man, this is not going to happen again, right? And I'm talking about based on my own experience, right? Like
Hmm.
finishing, I'm like, I have only two ways, two doors, two pills, the blue and the red pill. The red pill is like, yeah, I messed up. And the blue pill is like, I'll find excuses. Um, so LOT, mindset, um, you have to practice those skills. You have to burn a lot of reps. And then you have to have an opportunity where your training forcing you to make a decision. And there are consequences for each decision you make,
Yeah.
either in your favor or against you. So consequences. I think that's how you
Yeah.
learn.
Yeah. It's tough, man. Like when you even like when you discuss pressure testing, you mentioned pressure testing, right? I think you have to be specific with defining pressure testing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's just use Brazilian Jiu Jitsu for example. The white belt is learning techniques. They've got 3 stripes in, so to say. Well, what's pressure testing look like for a white belt versus another white belt versus a white belt versus a black belt? The black belt's going to be able to apply more pressure. So like at what point does like how do we rightly apply pressure with realistic expectations?
Okay, so let me put um, pressure, in my opinion, that I refer to is mostly a psychological pressure because of the decision making. That's the point. When it comes to integrated combatives, I think the most successful person will be the one that will find the, the right, not technique, but the right answer to the problem, right? So, what is best against somebody swinging a punch? What is the best answer for somebody shooting a low double leg? Or somebody clenching heavy your head to throw elbows and knees. So if we think about Muay Thai alone, and I'm gonna get into the jiu-jitsu, but if we're talking about Muay Thai alone, what is the best answer? Somebody clinches you. Well, there are many different ways to fight the neck clinch,
Mm-hmm.
correct?
Right.
But in combatives, what is the best answer? Maybe if somebody, I'm talking about, you know, you're fighting for your life, you have your tools, and somebody gets you by, a clinch. So maybe the answers will not be exactly like a Muay Thai fight
Mm-hmm.
because integrated combatants are going to have other tools and skills that probably will expedite your success.
Right.
But in jiu-jitsu, let's say, and the pressure testing for me, because it's amateur, is an amateur sport, martial art, for a white belt, will be to get that white belt, maybe, to go compete. Why I'm saying that? Well, because you have maybe 500 people watching you. And if you get submitted and put it to sleep in front of a 500 people, yeah, that's some pressure. You don't want to embarrass too much yourself. I'm talking about psychologically because it's just jiu-jitsu. Nobody goes fight jiu-jitsu. Sorry, jiu-jitsu guys. I'm a jiu-jitsu guy. Nobody fights in jiu-jitsu. We grapple. We compete, right? Because a lot of people are misusing the word fight, right? Sometimes they say like, I still use it. Like, I'll go fight in a competition. I'm like, no, you're going to go compete. You're going to go grapple somebody, but you're not going to be a fight. Let's leave fight for a fight. A white belt training with a black belt, yeah, can feel some pressure, but is that even fair? Most of the time, not, right? If a black belt going 100%. So what is the pressure there? The white belt, like, I don't care. This guy knows way more than me, has been doing this for 10 years. So there's no pressure there.
Yeah.
For MMA guy, it's definitely to go compete in front of a bunch of people in the cage, in an arena. And I'm talking about psychological pressure. Because most of the time, people fail under psychological pressure. It's not because they don't have the physical skills. Of course, that happens, right? Sometimes people just don't have the answer for that submission or just kept their hand low. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, say, two equally prepared competitors. They go fight in MMA. I feel that the guy that is less stressed or feeling less psychological pressure for whatever reason will have the greatest chance to win, because that fighter will have a better strategy, be able to work with more cognition, right? Less stress, less amygdala, more cognition. So it's pretty simple, right? So pressure testing, for me, one of the most important parts of that is the psychological pressure. So how do I train the guy sometimes when I run some situations and some scenarios, right? At our place, we run simulation. I have a simulation certified range program, so I can run it, do kind of stuff like that. We do some training. I do feel like we have to create the sense of responsibility in each person to take it seriously enough, in a way that if they get shot, stabbed, or I have to stop because the guy's just getting ground and pounded, under control, that person realized, like, well, if this was real life and that was today, I wouldn't be going home for my family. And that should be enough pressure for you to, you know what I mean? Like, to make the training really good. I remember one time, we worked in one of the contracts. There was there was a criteria in which the participants would fail, and they're going through selection, right? But one of them, and I cannot tell all of them, but one of them was fail to act. If you fail to act, you fail the test, obviously. Simple, right? In that case, it's pretty much their career, their future career, right? And one time I was running a training in another state. I'm not going to say the state, otherwise the person might realize. But long story short, I gave a specific scenario, and it was very simple. We're doing a simulation training. There was no physical engagement at the point. It was just like decision making, etc. But the point was, same time, the same thing that sometimes Bill does on the second day of some courses, like we do some, not pressure test, but think about who you love the most. Okay, my
Hmm.
daughter, my wife and my daughters. Okay, so here's the deal. They are in this room. And anyway, so there's this scenario situation. And it's just basic training. But there's a role player, and the participant failed to act. All right, okay, no big deal. I'm not making a big deal about it. Just like, what did you see? Um, what did you think? Why did you go this way? Why you didn't shoot the guy? And the guy just froze. And he was emotionally affected by that because he realized he needed way more training. Mindset wise. And this is like, I'm not talking about law enforcement. I'm not talking about somebody that went through an academy or somebody in the military or somebody that is like in a civilian agency or anything like that. Those guys get trained, go through INDOC, they go through the whole process. They're not so fresh. But I'm talking about, say, a civilian who has been training in combatives. I just added the pressure of some mentalization, some thinking, like think that your most loved ones are inside that room. That's it. That's all it took. Simple thing. It's silly. If you're law enforcement, you're listening to this, if you're military, paramilitary, if it's special ops, whatever. Like sometimes guys that have that type of training and violence cannot sympathize or empathize with what I'm talking about. But I'm talking about a civilian, just somebody that start training combatives and wants to become more capable. But when I added the psychological pressure, the person failed to act, and that showed a hole in his LOT and his mindset. And it was just a scenario-based training. But I feel like with the right components, if we add the psychological pressure, and the psychological pressure can be just like, I don't want to fail in front of everybody, right? It could be just something like that. Like,
Yeah.
I just don't want my friends to look to see me like, looking like a fool here dying. You know what I mean? Like, so,
Right.
and I have failed in training. And one was pretty bad in my opinion, and I owned it. And I failed to positive ID one of my guys that I didn't hear saying that he was flanking and this is in the middle of the woods and etc. And then I didn't PID him, and then I end up shooting him. It's pretty bad. You got to own that. Ask me
Right.
if it ever happened again. No, it never happened again.
Yeah.
But I didn't take it as a joke. I didn't take it as a game. I took it as like a big failure.
Yeah. I
That's
think
how
it's
we learn.
important that we have parameters that allow us to fail in training.
Hmm.
We have to find, as students, we have to find where that red line is.
Look, just a quick anecdotal
Yeah.
here, and I hope she doesn't mind me saying, but we ran a good active shooting training at our school, like very sensorial, overwhelming, with fire alarms going on and low light, low visibility, good role players screaming, people running out of the place, and I'm not gonna say who, but better this way. Uh, but end up like the participant end up shooting who was supposed to be rescued.
Mm.
Right, one person was supposed to be rescued, and overwhelming. I get it. We had some smoke. We had strobe lights. We had loudspeakers with gunshots going on. We had role players with an AR Sims, and under pressure. First beginning of the run, everything perfect. Maybe something that could be fixed. Boom, 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 boom. Failed to to PID, and end up shooting who needed to be saved. During the AAR, the person was pretty just like, man, that I really messed this up. And I'm okay, that's fine. I mean, on the next time, you know what to do, but next day, the person is still talking about, and to this day, still like feedbacks like I need to go through that again, and I need to control that emotional side, like because the beginning was perfect.
Yeah.
Headshot to the shooter, everything was great. Towards the end, still maybe overwhelmed by that reacting amygdala in there, and just like, listen, you only get better if you allow to fail in training. Proper AAR, have good reruns.
Right.
And it's the only way to get desensitized, I think. Besides, of course, real life experience that only law enforcement can, and guys that have faced battles and etc.
So in your opinion, what would you say is the first thing that breaks down under pressure?
Breaks down, like what goes down first?
Yeah.
Yeah,
what's the first thing that fails? Decision
making. And this is just like neurologically, this is just like a prefrontal cortex. It's what most people that are listening to the podcast probably already know, but the fact of stress in your brain is physiological. You need to understand what happens in your brain. You need to know neurologically what happens, so you become conscious, and you can, maybe even through breathing, you can control yourself. That's my opinion. And my opinion is the best way to desensitize someone, first, without a run, is to educate the person and how the brain works. The shortcuts that are going to happen. Police officers know this really well, right? Everything that physiologically, all those stress hormones causes in your body.
Yeah.
Once you understand that, you can acknowledge that, physiologically speaking, and you might be able to balance that. At least that happens with me in a lower level, say even back when I used to compete, right? When, say, I'm going to a final and I'm getting too pumped up, I'm like, I need to bring myself down a little bit. I go do some breathing, I need to expand my vision. I try to listen to far away conversations if I can, or noises. Consciously doing that to regain control and not letting, those effects of the stress take over and reduce my cognition, my decision making.
Yes, yeah. Do you think pressure needs to be, from a training perspective, should pressure be applied progressively?
I think it's a smart way to do it, unless you want to shock somebody. But I think it's a good way to do it. If I put it in the MMA terms, in our team, we have a progression. We follow a progression, starting from Shark Tanks in the school to smokers in kickboxing and boxing, to, I'm talking about MMA, to smaller amateur shows, to bigger amateur shows, to smaller professional shows, to bigger professional shows. To this day, I only had one guy that went from amateur to pro, debuting in the UFC. It was an anomaly. It was Dan Kramer, Ultimate Fighter 7. We lied to the UFC. We said that he had professional fights. They didn't check. His first pro debut was in the UFC, and he won.
That's definitely the anomaly.
He was an anomaly, yeah. But most of all, like, we progressed. We have a progression. Yeah.
I think one thing that seems to happen in almost every industry is, at least eventually, is that performance starts getting mixed with like marketing. And then over time, aesthetics can begin replacing genuine substance. You mentioned snake oil in the combatives world, and I think a lot of people recognize that feeling, even if they can't fully articulate it. What do you think has gone wrong in parts of modern combatives culture?
Social media. It's 100% social media. We
What is it
we in
about the
the
social media?
Okay. So first of all, who's not on social media? Um, a lot of times it's not known, or some people, because they don't know, they tend to make less of it. So that's one. We know that, in my opinion, the best system out there, um, it's not posting short, cool videos that are edited for TikTok. We know
Right.
that. We know who we're talking about. So, um, many guys, I think, look, I think it can be extremely beneficial, right? We can get guys like Matt Pranka, right? Being bluntly honest
Yeah.
and telling how it is and calling people out and providing really good information, amazing information. That's a really positive in social media.
Right.
Honest people posting honest things, not caring about what the uneducated is saying negatively about what they are watching because they don't know.
Right.
Makes sense? It's a long
Yeah. Perfect
explanation.
sense. It makes perfect sense.
I think like what you post, like the videos that you in particular, Bill, Kyle, guys that I know, and again, it's not because I'm friends with them. Kyle DeFore, Bill Rapier, Matt Pranka, you, and some other guys, but it's not because I'm. There's a reason why I'm friends with you guys. It's just, you know what I mean, like it, and because why I watch what you guys put out there. Had opportunity to train with all of you, but because I know it's a legit and it's a good information, is the most uh, real, right?
Yeah.
But then you see guys that are just looking for content. There's some people that their mission, like yours, like Bill's, like Kyle, like all Matt, X-Ray Alpha, and their mission is to provide good information.
Yeah.
Your primary goal, it's not your statistics. It's not your metrics on Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube. That is a consequence. That is a result of a good information and good, let's say, product as far as like skills. And you do have other people that you can tell that their concern is pretty much likes and shares.
Yeah.
They want a trend. And listen, that's okay. I mean, I'm not here to say if that makes you happy and go on, do what you're doing. But you have to remember that if you are a content, let's say, provider, you have a responsibility to not lie, to not trash other people or other things that you don't know, to not provide bad information. Because some people really, they trust you. They believe in what you're saying. So if you put your face out there and you're showing something, man, like I hope these guys know what they are putting out there, these other guys.
Mhm.
And I hope that in their heart they do believe that that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I just hope, because if they are putting just for the wrong reasons, man. And again, it blows my mind and just upsets me. And but I don't go online. I don't say anything to anybody. But I see so much stuff that is not good, especially when it comes to counter edge weapons.
Mm.
And I see that it's not good, but it's trending. It became the flavor of the month, or became the standards. But man, if those guys, they're so good in other things, and they have like good a lot of times they have many good things that we can learn from them too. But if they could just control that gatekeeper and just say like, well, for this topic, I'm gonna bring this guy,
Right.
or they would say, I got this from such and such from
Right.
this system, and there's nothing wrong um, giving credit when credit is due. I see that
Right.
with you. I see that with, again, all the guys that I have opportunity to train. They name who they got their information from, where they got the information from. They give credit. They're not worried about being a single guy that came up with all of that.
Yeah.
And it's so much easier to be like that. So much easier.
Attribution is not weakness.
No.
Attributing where you got the information from is not weak. It's not less than. It doesn't make you less of a coach, less of a teacher. Like, if we're being honest, nobody created any of this. Like, fighting and shooting and all this stuff has been happening for a long time. So I think attribution is just, it's a mark of honor for the teacher, for the coach, for the instructor. It's important. Be a good thief. If something's better than what you're doing, steal it. Just attribute where it came from.
Yeah, I say I incorporate it. I say like,
yeah.
I'm incorporating this. But look, man, when it comes to the many formulas from SCG or from SIAC, I brought into jiu-jitsu. I talk about feeder and receiver, and I tell my guys, like, listen, this doesn't come from me. This comes from SIAC. And I first heard this from this person. And we can apply the same formula because it's transferable, it's repeatable, it's scalable. And that's why it's good. Space, time, and force. You can use space, time, and force in jiu-jitsu.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
And when I mentioned that, I always mention where I learned that from, or in RMA, we have many acronyms, and I do the same thing. Even when talking about some disarming or some things like, I always mention like the 3 C's, 2 D's. You change the direction of the weapon, you clear the direction of the weapon, you control, you damage and disarm. This is just like overall kind of like a formula.
Yeah.
Name where you got it from, and man, people are going to respect you.
Yep.
That's what
absolutely.
I realized. Nobody.
Professor, why do you think?
Go ahead.
Sorry, there's a delay. Why do you think so many people are drawn toward like unrealistic or performative training?
Because they never failed themselves, because they never put themselves in a position to fail. They don't know what it is to test the things that they preach. And it's almost like martial arts that abandon real, say, contact to become just like forms that you cannot really put in practice because it's too dangerous. You heard this before, like in martial arts, like some martial arts. I think it's a lack of. My question is like, do they test this? Like, do they go like full life? So again, I'm not trying to be like a fanboy, but let's talk about that Tienza group, right? When they gear up with training, with their training blades and Kevlar gear, and then helmets and stuff like that, protection, glove, those like thick hand protection, and they go live. You have a guy running at you, man, at full force, full speed, from not too far away. I'm not talking about Tula. I'm talking about 5 yards.
Yeah.
And they do that weekly. And almost every training, which will be the equivalent of jiu-jitsu guys rolling. The only difference is when you hear that slash on your helmet, that mesh helmet, Shrek. The first thing that people should think, the students, is like, if that was a real blade, and if this was 5 yards, my whole face would have been slashed diagonally from my forehead to the end of my chin. If it's not a thrust, every time you hear a thrust to your Kevlar, black, what that would mean in real life, that piece of blade buried inside your heart.
Right.
So now, many techniques, and you learn how to pass those blades, and you learn how to counter, correct? Things start getting harder. My question is, the people that likes to teach the fancy stuff or go online and trash other people because of, whatever, have they ever done this type of training? I'm not talking about the mild force on force with a shock or rubber knife. Right. I'm talking about a training aluminum blade with somebody going at full force, because they can go at full force because we all gear up to protect that.
Right.
So the question is, have these people ever done that kind of training to have a reality check to see that your jiu-jitsu are not going to work? And again, jiu-jitsu guys, I'm sorry, I'm a jiu-jitsu guy. So I'm, again, I trained jiu-jitsu for 30-something years. I'm telling you, it won't be the right answer. Your MMA training, you're not going to be the right answer. So the question is, there's not even a question, it's a statement. I don't believe that the people that put bad information out there have ever done themselves this type of full force training. I don't think so.
Yeah, I agree.
And
it's evident.
But a lot of people, again, the crowd, the viewers, they don't know what they are looking at. They don't have, because you don't have all the other information to be able to filter. You don't have the right filters. And that's another thing that we learn in good, with a good LOT. Like, I had opportunity to spend 5 days as a student in one of the contracts with when SCG was running the LOT training for 5 days. And one thing that was mentioned is to be a good observer is having the right filters. Some people just don't have the right filters, so they don't know what they're looking at. So it looks cool, It's like seeing, I got a name, I don't care, Kira Gracie talking about women's self-defense based on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm sorry, I don't know if you want, you can add it, you can do whatever. My point is, it's so unrealistic. It's so unrealistic that I just feel like I feel sorry for the people that buys that. Better to know something? Yeah, 100%. It's better to know something, but is that life-saving? I don't know.
Right. That's a great point. Professor, you've been coaching for a long time. And I think coaching is like one of the clearest windows into how someone can actually understand people. Because it's, teaching isn't just transferring information. Real teaching in regards to like what we're talking about here is managing fear, managing ego, stress, insecurity, learning styles, disciplines, confidence, failure, and you spent years working with a wide range of personalities and experience levels. So what has coaching taught you about people that fighting alone could not have ever taught you?
Well, I do believe that every single person is a whole cosmos, borrowing this from, I don't know the name, but I heard this and I'm like, wow, that makes sense. Every
Mm.
single person is so complex, right?
Yeah.
One thing I know is that a lot of you find out a lot about yourself. A lot of people find out about themselves under pressure, right? So it's great to be a hobbyist. It's great to see hobbyists, but I see a lot of people finding more about themselves when they go through some pressure. So we're talking
Yeah.
about martial arts specifically. It could be somebody going through a competition. They're going to go through something that they never ever faced in their lives. Um, when it comes to the environment, the psychological pressure, and after the first match, they come to me and say, "Man, I didn't hear you, this and that," and they realize that there's some things about themselves that they thought they could control, but they could not, and they only found out in that moment. Um, so I've seen people overcoming PTSD. I've seen women leaving more confident after joining because they needed to find a community and a way to become more confident because they suffer abuse. So, having said that, I feel like you end up coming across so many different cosmos, so many different universes, so many different struggles, so many different goals that you can only respect each person individually. And even though we have a collective, and you're going to have an unconscious collective there, like a culture, right? Because what creates a culture in a school? Well, one is, you know, um, a common goals or common worldviews. The same thing we're talking about community
Yeah.
and how we treat people and how we want to help each other, um, so forth, so on. But we can never deny the individual. And and again, I'm not anybody's therapist. I'm not anybody's psychologist. But as a coach, sometimes the more you listen, the more you learn. Even as a coach, the more you observe, the more you learn about human behavior. And I feel that it's important as a martial arts coach to not just have knowledge in what you are teaching physically, skill wise, but also it is important to know a little bit about psychology. You need to know a little bit about nothing in depth, but just being able to empathize, you
Yeah.
know, because not everybody is born a strong, confident human being, right? Not everybody going to be a naturally born champion. There are some cases, but there are some people that, with some help from a coach, um, can become that, can overcome their insecurities, can overcome their fears, if we can guide them a little bit and how to navigate through all these nuances and you know and get them to become stronger people, or just like
Yeah.
be there to for the lack of a better word, let's say, to use a word that today is in common use, to influence people positively, influence organically, meaning um, motivating people. Like for instance, since I start since I started shooting more often and making it public, I had more students coming to me like, "Hey, Luigi, I want to know more. I want to get my pistol permit. I want to, I'm thinking more about having a firearm so I can protect my home and my family and training." And that's one of the reasons why I became a pistol permit instructor, so guys can do the pistol permit courses with me. That's why I became an FFL. So
Hmm.
I can, not because I can sell firearms, but hey, I can get whatever you want. We can go to the range. You can test different things, whatever you feel like, so we can positively have an impact in our students' lives.
Yeah.
Um, if we pay attention to the individual and we keep the collective also with the same culture, like sharing the culture, creating a positive culture.
You mentioned psychology. How much of good coaching is technical knowledge, and how much is understanding human behavior?
I would not know how to put this in percentages. But I in the many times I I had to had a conversation with a fighter and just explaining to him, for instance, like MMA fighter, first fight, I see the guy sweating, and I go shake his hand. I always do that. I feel that hand cold and sweaty, and the breathing like very shallow, and the guy's like trying to compensate in different ways. I'm like, hey, let's have a conversation. Listen, are you nervous now? And be honest with me. Are you afraid of anything? Are you what you feeling, right? And and being able to normalize that, like, okay, listen, normal. It's okay. We can do some things during your warm up to calm yourself down and to get you more like uh with less stress. That can get you like more calm. And so I think that there is this component of being able to talk to a competitor, to a fighter, and and understanding how they are feeling, maybe normalize. Well, I can do that because, again, I said I am maybe somebody more with a proclivity to be more anxious. So I know how it feels prior to a pressure test, force on force, and I know what I do mentally to calm myself down, right? To But then I can tell the guy, listen, this works for me, and I know because I feel this way. And people are like, oh, you feel like that, coach? I'm like, yeah. If I go compete today, probably I'll feel a little, anxious or nervous or, maybe some self-doubt. And I do this to help me out. Oh, cool. So that can normalize, right? The guy feels normal, doesn't feel abnormal. Um, Other than that, I feel you need to know when to I'm not somebody that compliments people all the time. I don't throw compliments like or praises like loosely. Um, in my opinion, that is not good.
Yeah.
Just to say good job. I like that movie Whiplash. Um, there's a scene in the movie where the maestro talks about the guy, the main actor, about good job. The words, and then I'm not gonna spoil the movie, but I'm like, this is so great. So I keep it as a card in my sleeve. Like, man, if you did a good job, you're gonna receive this good job, and gonna mean a lot to you.
Yeah.
But I also try to motivate people, right? So there's like not just a tap on the back, not just a let's go. but maybe trying to get them to tell me what is their limiting intrusive thought belief, and trying to just replace that with something that is real and positive,
Yeah.
that is not just a good job, you know.
Yeah.
So I think knowing how to navigate that, know how people learn differently, um, knowing a little bit of psychology and education, I think it helps,
Yeah.
right? Just
Yeah.
understand the type
Absolutely.
of learners. If you want to be a good coach, I think it makes sense to understand the the different learning movements in the brain and how that works, and how people assimilate information, how people consolidate information, how they accommodate information. This is going to help, you know.
Yeah.
But again,
Awesome.
it's part of being a student as well.
For sure. For sure. In your experience, what do you think separates the students who continue growing versus the students who plateau?
Uh, well, one we can rank many. So one is discipline. Some people just get satisfied with whatever they got, right? But if you have discipline and consistency in training, I think, and the self honesty, you're going to be able to always find flaws in your game, reasons to get better, right? So I know the flaws in my games. I know I repeat to myself, like, I don't protect. So let's put in jiu-jitsu terms. I don't always do the things that I like to do. I try to put myself in bad positions, right? Roger Gracie is known for having become a champion so many times, just training with his students. And in his own words, like, he would put himself in bad positions and do specific training, um, more than just like sparring guys, because he could beat them, anytime. So I could protect my weaknesses doing what I do best every single time, or I can put myself in bad situations and try to work those situations. The same thing in shooting. I know what are my gaps and what I need to get better at, instead of just doing what I'm good at, what I already control and have a domain over. I rather do the things that I'm more uncomfortable doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's the thing. It's like that self honesty and having the discipline and consistency to work on those areas, right? So I think self
Yeah.
honesty is the biggest thing.
That's a great perspective.
Yeah, and then again, going back to the beginning of the talk, control your gatekeeper. Um, that is self honesty, the Kaizen mindset, and kill your clone. In jiu-jitsu, could be telling my students, like, do this because that's how you get me. Not many coaches like to do that,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for everybody, um, life can be a big adventure if you put in your head that no matter your rank and your title, there's always lessons that you can learn where you don't want to look at, and even from who you don't want to listen to.
Hmm.
But if you have a little bit of that open mindedness, it's fun to keep learning.
Absolutely. All right. I'd like to take a second and talk about one of our partners, GripKeeper. So their line of products are great for building out your dry fire practice program. Their trainers match the vast majority of existing setups and let you work real reps, draw, grip, trigger control at speed, etc., all in the comfort of your own training space. The team and I think it's a great supplemental tool for incorporating your dry practice and just increasing the overall volume of reps that you can get. So definitely check them out. Go to gripkeeper.com, and if you make a purchase, take advantage of our partnership code, AHT10, to save a little coin on making your purchase. As always, we're grateful for your guys' willingness to support the companies that support us. Thanks. Professor, one thing I appreciated in going through the questionnaires, the pre-recording questionnaire with your answers, is that you noted how capability never seemed separated from responsibility. Not just becoming dangerous, but understanding why capability matters first place. And you mentioned questions like, what does it to be a capable man? And I think it was, what does it mean to be a protector? And I think those are like much deeper questions than people often realize. So what does the word protector to you actually mean today?
I think if I could replace protector with another word, I would say, as a civilian, a shield. So I want to be somebody that can shield my loved ones from dangers, whatever those dangers could be. And at the same time, I can shield them, but I also have to educate them. So maybe I was thinking about that question. And to be a protector also, there's an educational part of it, right? So how can I protect my daughters from maybe the mistakes that I made in my life? It's not by isolating them from the risk only as a shield, but educating them, telling my story. Make sense? Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
they don't need to live what I lived, but they need to know what I lived. And the wrong decisions I made, the right decisions I made. So I think protection is a broad term. We can talk about an imminent protection, physical, from danger, from somebody killing you, or it can be not imminent. It can be just life.
Yeah.
I can protect, if you're a young father listening to this, how do you protect your kids from alcohol? How you protect them? Like not having booze in your house? Well, that's one way. That's an imminent. What is the other way? Is to educate your kids about the risk of alcohol or drugs, or gambling or etc. So I think a protector, I was thinking about after I answered your question here, and I was thinking, yeah, I think there's a component in that too. Being an educator, educating, or helping them to think for themselves as well. Giving them critical, helping them have a critical thinking.
Yeah. I had a feeling you were going to go deeper on that. You didn't disappoint.
Yeah, no, it's just I feel.
How do you think modern culture has distorted like what healthy masculinity and protection are supposed to look like?
Well, there are many things, right? So first one, I think there's some hormonal issues going on with the modern life. I think boys should be eating more beef and eggs and butter, and lifting more weights for sure. Besides that, I think it's education again, because when it all goes back to social media a little bit, like, and this is not conspiracy theory, and no, this is we can research this There's a good guy I like to follow, Chase Hughes. He talks about this in some of his lectures. Like the social media, they figure out the dopamine triggers. They know how to. That's why they moved from Vine 6 seconds videos to TikToks to Instagram reels and stories and shorts and YouTube shorts. Like,
Yep.
It seems that everybody's looking for shallow pleasures.
Hmm.
And with that, hard work that most of the time requires time, our hard work is getting neglected. Whatever that could be, building something, disassembling, assembling things, and getting to know stuff, because it takes time.
Right.
But the results are more solid than the quick dopamine.
Hmm.
That is one thing I do believe. So boys and men looking for shallow, short pleasures. Second, or maybe even first, again, goes back to parents educating their kids and their boys. Like, listen, you should be a gentleman. I do believe that. I do believe that. I still believe in opening doors for my wife or my daughters or my mom, and letting them talk and listening to them. Just being a good man, being a polite man, and be gentleman. And but talking about responsibilities, like what is a great responsibility? Like when I was young, I was still a underage in Brazil. My mom opened a bank account for me. This is back when Brazil, you had to be 18 years old to open a bank account. So my mom, she opened a bank account, and there's a quick good story about that.
Hmm.
And it was like a shared account, so it was under her name and my name. And she said, like, well, every month now, I'm gonna put the money inside your bank account, and that's how you're gonna pay for your food in school, and if you wanna, do whatever. It's just that's all you have, right?
Right.
I forgot how old I was, like 14, 15, right? So maybe here is different, but then in Brazil it's kind of like pretty new. So she gave me that responsibility, and I think in first month I got my father's car. I was underage. I was 15 years old. I wasn't supposed to be driving, and I got my friend, and we went to a party in another city without a driver's license, and again, it's not like a cool story. It's like something wrong. I took the car, went to the party. The party was lame. And then I'm like, oh, let's drive back. I'm driving on a highway, and the car breaks down. All I have is my checkbook and some cash. I managed to drag the car like, it was like back old days, man, carburetors. I'm talking about, you know, I don't know if it was carburetor, but yeah, I think like maybe, I don't know, 1986 probably in Brazil. Anyway, I find this gas station with one of those mechanics, like roadside mechanics. And the guy pretty much charged me. And this is in the middle of the night, like this is like 2 a.m. He charges me exactly how much I had in my bank account. And that's all the money I had. And I was a kid. And I wrote him a check, and he said, like, kid, this check better not bounce, otherwise I'll go after you. He wrote down it's like scary stuff. But that taught me a lesson, many lessons, like not be stupid, not steal my father's car in the middle of the night while my parents were sleeping. And of course, like we all, I mean, at least like I did some stupid stuff when I was young. But then I talked to my mom I told her, and she said, like, I'm not going to give you a penny. If you need to walk to school, because that money was also to pay, for my, that was all the money I had to take a bus to go to school and all of that. I didn't go in a school bus. My mom made me take like a public transportation to learn,
Hmm.
and she said, like, that's all the money you have for the rest of the month. You either, you're going to figure this out. So that taught me responsibility. That taught me, like, that's masculinity. You own your mistakes. So I think a lot of that comes from home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Men can be masculine, strong, do hard stuff, develop hard skills, still be a gentleman, still be polite, still treat people well. There's no toxic masculinity. This is
Right.
propaganda.
Many times so far, just in this conversation, you've brought up the Kaizen mindset. And I think that idea sits underneath almost everything that you've discussed today. Not perfection, not a rival, you know, not a rival, so to say, but just continuous refinement, continuous honesty, adjustments. And I think there's something powerful about viewing growth as an ongoing responsibility as opposed to just, a goal, right? Like an end zone, a destination. So what does the Kaizen mindset actually mean to you beyond the surface level definition that people typically hear?
Actually, you just said it all. I think in life, a lot of people are happy reaching, I reach a black belt, let's say in jiu-jitsu, or reach a rank in something, and they're happy with that. That's fine. Listen, we learn in that book, The Courage to be Disliked, that it's not up to us to judge how people live their lives. So, okay. But for me, each accomplishment is just a landmark. Like it's a landmark that if I keep moving on, it's now in my rear mirror. There are more things that I can learn. There are more things that I can achieve. With the Kaizen mindset, which is simple thing, again, incremental continuous improvement. If we're thinking about the health of our brain, I'm not even getting to a whole neurological or neuroscience, let's say, but just think about that. It's just like how we can remain young in our minds. How can we remain alive?
Yeah.
Right? Again, I keep bringing her up. But my mother, she's 87 years old, and she knows how to use AI to ask a lot of questions and solve her curiosity. Like, she sent me some stuff that actually she figured out because she had a legal question in Brazil about something, and boom, she found an answer. I'm saying is like it helps in neuroplasticity, but it just makes life more adventurous, in my opinion, too. Right? So it's another great motivation to be alive is to not cease learning, whatever that could be. But if you apply that to your area of expertise, it would just make you better.
Yeah.
And if you are a coach, you're just making other people better. So it's a win-win situation.
Yeah.
Plus, you don't need to be, you don't need to defend your persona or your online persona, or you don't need to live in a defensive mode if you get criticized, like it's easier to, yeah, maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong. I think like this, you think like that. That's fine. But I don't know. It makes me more confident. It just makes me more confident. It makes me way more confident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you personally guard against, like, I feel like this happens inevitably, right? Like a degree of competency is achieved, and like it gets easy, so to say, to get complacent with that. So how do you personally guard against complacency once you've achieved, a desired level of competency in a subject, so to say?
I have mentors, and I always like to involve myself or have friends that know way more than me. That's I love being able to take a 20-hour road trip with Tom Kyer to Mississippi and just
Mm-hmm.
like have my own 20-hour interview session with him to pick up his mind and learn from him. I'm just giving a quick example,
Yeah.
or Bill might get annoyed with me because he stays with us during the week that he's here in Connecticut, and I ask him so many questions about so many things. It's just like, isn't it great? Like, it's
Yeah.
so awesome. It's just like, so it's always good to be around people that knows more than you in so many different areas. Yeah, I don't know. I crave that. I just crave that.
Yeah. Yeah. Having mentors, like you said, is huge, right? Like maintaining that level of being a student. I I think most people miss that. They get to a certain point and they're like, I know enough.
Yeah. I mean, again, some people they get happy with little, or no, or even a lot, right? Even a lot. Sometimes they know so much, but they like um, I don't know. I think there's always something that you can learn, and I think a lot of the knowledge and the wisdom you get from books, you get from articles, you get from reading and studying, etc. But man, learning from other people's experiences is also such an amazing way to learn. So I might, like I said, like I've been teaching here in the United States for 23 years. I'm a 6th-degree black belt in jiu-jitsu, etc., etc. But I know I have friends that are lower ranked than me in jiu-jitsu, but because they taught in another country or because they went through different stuff, they can teach me things too. So just having conversations and asking good questions, it just leads to, again, you learning and you're learning. Look, I know many teachers that don't even look at jiu-jitsu moves online and things like that. I have a group of my black belts in a messenger app here. All my
Mm-hmm.
black belts are there. And sometimes I, browsing through Instagram, I'm like, oh, that's cool. Hey guys, I share with them. We're gonna be doing this week. But first, I try to do it. Whatever I see. Sometimes it's a cool technique. I'm talking about jujitsu now, and
Mm-hmm.
so I go to the gym. I try to see. I'll try to see how the guy was doing, etc. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Um, let's do this week. So I share with the guys, or you get from a student. Sometimes you get from a student, or I get a drill, a firearm drill that I see one of the guys, that I follow doing, and I do it. I go practice. So it's simple. It's just like it's easy to learn like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Never stop learning. The the internal dialogue. I feel like at some point, I feel like that internal dialogue, the internal conversation shifts from like, what can I achieve to what continues after me. And I think coaching, I think fatherhood, leadership, and community eventually force people to think beyond just themselves, not just about performance, not just about transmission, but more. So, like for you, when you think about legacy today, what matters most to you now?
Um, you know, I feel that technically speaking, um, there's no Luigi legacy, right? Because what I know comes from other people. So if I died tomorrow, I tell my students, the only thing I hope is for the gym, for our school, for our community to keep going with the same mindset, right? Um, because I think we have a good mindset in our place. If I die tomorrow, um, I'll like my daughters to tell their sons um, a little bit more about the process that I went through, so they don't ever get afraid to restart in their lives.
Mm.
And I'm writing a book. I don't know when it's going to be ready, but it's about immigration. And it's not about what is going on in the United States, nothing like that. It's nothing. It's about the art of restarting, right? Starting over. I'm writing Portuguese, so I have to translate. But so I think like in my professional life, I'm not worried about the techniques that I taught. I'm not worried about the skills that I taught. I just hope that whoever replaces me teaching, teach other people to, build a good community that can help some people, and have the open mindedness to always be a student. When it comes to my personal life, um, I just want my grandchildren to never be afraid of starting over if they need to, um, and not be worried about facing challenges in life. It is what it is. You got to be brave. You got to go through, see the results, build your confidence, keep moving. You know. So I think that's what I would want to leave. If is that what you meant with your question?
Yeah. So with that, what do you hope people will most remember about the way that you've lived your life and the way that you've led others in your sphere of influence?
I think that being a student and be always looking for new things, it's a pretty good way. You know, the Kaizen. I think it's a good mindset. If I was remembered, um, some people say like I'm so into so many different things. Some people say it's ADHD. It's not. It's just I think it's a curious mind. um,
Yeah.
you know, um, I play the drums. I like music a lot. I like to shoot. I really like to get. I get deep into those things. Um, Sometimes I just get into learning more. Um, I do my own web designing. I do my own web, anything related to, my IT stuff. And I guess, like, if it was like, oh, trying to remember who Luigi was. Oh, Luigi was a guy that was always into something and trying to learn something new. I think it's pretty simple, you know. But one of the things is definitely is to be able. I think above all, my message to every single guy out there is just like, man, learn what is to be a protector and protect. Physically, financially, spiritually, psychologically speaking, like protect the people that you love. You don't want to ever regret not protecting them. Because there's a silly book, but there's a good message. It's called the Little Prince, and it's from I think he was Swiss writer. I'm not gonna know how to say his name, Saint-Exupéry or something like that. It's a kid's book, right? But there's a moment where there's a fox in the story, and the fox tells the prince, who is a little boy, like, you are responsible for what you tame. And the meaning is mostly like, I'm responsible for all those students that came through my doors and indirectly, not intentionally, made them like me as a coach. So I'm responsible for giving them the best instruction. I'm responsible for giving them, because in a way I tamed, I don't know how to translate that 100%, or captivated, maybe captivated.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I made somehow my wife fall in love for me, right? One day I was charming, invited her for a date, kind of whatever I
Yeah.
had to do, use my masculinity. I'm also responsible for her happiness. I'm
Yeah.
responsible to own my mistakes and try to fix them. The moment that I put two girls in this world, two daughters, I'm responsible in making sure that I can be of some help to make them happy through life and protect them,
Yeah.
right? Um, yep. I think I like that message. It's a silly message from a kid's book.
Yeah.
You are
That's
responsible
brilliant.
for those you captivate, or, you cannot
Yeah.
just like captivate people and throw them out. You cannot just do that.
Professor, I think conversations like this ultimately come back to responsibility and growth and capability, leadership, protection, adaptation.
Yeah.
All of it eventually points back to how someone chooses to live and what they ultimately choose to carry. So, if a man listening to this conversation realizes that he's drifting, avoiding growth, living below his potential, what's like the one thing you want him to understand before we close out?
So I'm gonna give like one message because I have to. Um, just think, God didn't create you for that life. God loves you, and God knew you before you were born, and God had bigger plans for you. And when it comes to responsibility, I feel that because life is a gift,
Yeah.
and it is your responsibility to first think, if you don't have anybody in your life, you should know that God loves you. And God knew you before you were born. And he had bigger plans for you. And if you embrace this responsibility for your life and knowing that it's not going to be easy, you're going to have a lot of obstacles, but you can overcome those obstacles with everything we said, with discipline, with consistency, with perseverance, especially living where we live. Man, we are blessed here in the United States. Be honest with yourself. Love yourself. Treat yourself the same way that you want somebody to treat you. Right? Respect yourself. Have self-respect. And if you have that mindset, you definitely you will snap out of that mindset, and you're gonna look at yourself in the mirror. You're gonna shave you like your beard, so you will trim your beard. I will shave my
Yeah.
But you're gonna clean yourself. You're gonna try to dress up in a way that you feel confident. You're gonna clean your room. You're gonna make your bed. You're gonna cook yourself a nice meal. You're going to organize your little things that you can control and you can organize. And this is something that Jordan Peterson says a lot. And then you're going to start with the smallest things until you can reach the biggest things. So, but don't forget, like, God loves you and he wants something way bigger for you. You just need to believe that.
Professor, I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and have this conversation. Personally, what I enjoyed most about this discussion is that underneath all the topics that we've kind of covered, martial arts, coaching, capability, immigration, leadership, protection, there was like this constant thread of humility and evolution running through it all. So, not chasing status, not protecting ego, but really remaining willing to refine and adapt and continue growing. And I think that mindset is becoming increasingly rare today, especially in environments where people often build identity around appearing certain instead of remaining teachable, So I genuinely appreciate, your honesty, your perspective, and the way you've approached both leadership and growth over the years. So, Professor, if you don't mind, please share with the listeners where they can best connect with your work.
So my Instagram is open now. Is Luigi Mondelli with 2 L's, BJJ.com. I should not have put the BJJ, but now it's set. Luigi Mondelli with 2 L's, BJJ.com. Also, our local school is ATT, American Top Team Connecticut.com on Instagram. And I have a new account. It's Core Combatives, Core with a K, K-O-R-E, combatives.com. You can find some of my posts there when we have coaches coming over. I always post there too. I don't post techniques that much. I'm not, that guy. Sometimes just to help with the local, SEO here for my website, trying to, get more people from our community. But if you guys need anything, if I can be of any help, you can send me a DM there. I look at my DMs. I'm more than happy to help whoever I can help.
Yes, sir. We'll include all of that in the show notes, so they have all that for reference. But to everyone listening, we appreciate you watching and listening. We appreciate your support. If you found value in this conversation, please just consider liking, subscribing, sharing the episode with someone you think would benefit from listening to it. Leaving a review if possible. That support genuinely helps us having more conversations with people that I believe are respectable and worth learning from. So, Professor, thank you again.
Thank you.
And as
Thank you. I really
always, for
appreciate
those listening, stay dangerous.